Chapter 1088. The boundless spiritual pressure surged once again and continuously flowed into his body. There was no end to it. It was inexhaustible and there was no bottleneck. What is this situation? Sensing the raging spiritual pressure in his body, Dustless's face froze. He lowered his head to look at the Hogyoku embedded in his abdomen. When he was trying to find the source, a clear voice of nature came into his mind. Master, I will provide you with unlimited spiritual pressure. The Grim Reapers in front of you are very strong. The elites of the elites. You must go all out to deal with them. In his mind, the voice of the Hogyoku's consciousness came. It was clear and sweet. Dustless immediately understood that it was a woman's voice. That makes sense. I must go all out. Wu Chen nodded non-committally. The members of the Zero Squad were not easy to deal with. Each and every one of them was an outstanding existence. The eagle's eyes flickered and finally fixed on the head of the first soldier. This bald man had a lot of experience and was one of the best in the Zero Squad. Seems like he is going to put up a resistance. The soldiers of the Bing division were not easy to deal with. When they saw Wu Chen's murderous intent, they did not back down and unleashed their murderous aura. Wu Chen's surroundings were filled with the sound of ghosts crying and wolves howling. These Zero Squad were actually butchers. They had killed many people. Pay attention to your position. In front of the Spirit King, nothing is worth mentioning. There is no existence equal to the Spirit King. The Zero Squad's mission is to guard the Spirit King. The first soldier locked his eyes on Dustless, but his eyes were drifting around. He was looking at Shout Oro Senju Maru and Sayaso Tong Sai from the corner of his eyes. Obviously, he was absent-minded. These two were the closest to Dustless in the Zero Squad. Especially Shout Oro Senju Maru. These words were purposely said for the two of them. Buzz buzz buzz. The ground suddenly throbbed and began to shake. It was like jumping on a bed. Retreat. Feeling the throbbing danger from the ground, the first soldier warned. This guy is not an ordinary captain. Don't be arrogant because of the Zero Squad. His intention was to place Dustless on the same level. If they underestimated him, they might fail miserably. Tao Breaker 2. 96. One blade cremation. The extremely destructive blade-shaped flames drilled out of the ground and burned the entire sky, leaving behind a blade-shaped shadow. The members of Squad Zero were in a sorry state. Their pure white captain's feather was burnt black, revealing their skin. Looking at the shocking cracks on the ground, their hearts couldn't help but tremble. He must be crazy. Number 96. Tao Breaker. Is a sacrificial Tao Breaker. It will burn itself to ashes. Qilin Temple's Tianqilang was sweating for Dustless's craziness. To use such a ruthless self-harming move right from the start, one could definitely tell that Dustless wasn't a good person. It was no less brutal than Yawatch back then. At the very least, Yawatch cared about his own life. He has fused with Hogyoku. His strength is beyond our knowledge. Even if his body is burned, with the power of Hogyoku, he can regrow his limbs. Holding Zanka no Tachi, Yamamoto's heart was heavy. The biggest advantage of Zanka no Tachi was that it could erase the matter it hit with an explosive flame. But on Dustless, it was a different story. Super regeneration ability was completely useless. Just like when Dustless was hit by Zanka no Tachi, in less than a second, a brand new limb grew back. That is to say, this guy can't be killed no matter what? Looking at the faces of the members of Squad Zero, some people also had other thoughts. A new Soul King that can't be killed no matter what means that Soul Society will no longer have to worry about the collapse of the three realms. If we can't kill him, we can only seal him. Rolling his huge eyes, first soldier began to wave his writing brush in Zanpakuto, writing a large word seal in the void behind him. As soon as the pen fell, the place where Dustless and others were fighting was isolated from Soul Society behind them. The flowing air was obviously separated, filled with a suffocating danger, and the surrounding space was inexplicably sealed. This ability is really shameless. Will I die if you just write the word, die? ? With a slightly stiff expression, Dustless was speechless and said to himself. Although he said so, the expression on his face didn't change from beginning to end. He was fearless. This way, his movement will be restricted. It will be much more convenient to seal him. First soldier said in his heart. At the same time, he gave Yamamoto and the other members of Squad Zero a look, indicating that they should wait for the opportunity to move. Since you're not coming, I'll take the initiative to bully the weak. Seeing that they were exchanging glances, obviously discussing some conspiracy, Dustless was unmoved. Just as he was about to hit them with his Ryatsu, a huge palm came at him. 1,000 miles heaven palm. The huge palm was completely formed by Ryatsu, similar to a small mountain. Final struggle. Seeing this, Dustless didn't dodge. His eyes were filled with murderous intent, and an exaggerated energy fluctuation overflowed from his body. Mahabharata. The boundless repulsive force exploded in the air, and the incoming palm was instantly smashed away. A deep pit appeared around Wu Chen, and a soldier from the Weapon Master Division was lying on the ground. His body was already beyond recognition, as he had been smashed into pieces. The meaning was similar to Shinra Tensei. Extremely weak. Disdainfully curling his lips, Dustless even felt that these so-called Zero Squad were not as good as Old Man Yamamoto. At least Old Man Yamamoto could fight with him, but these so-called Zero Squad couldn't. Amaterasu. Black flames appeared out of nowhere and roasted the corpse of a soldier from the Army Chief's division. Chapter 1089. Dustless was not afraid of the so-called Zero Squad. It was just like when Yawatch fought with Yamamoto in the future, he fought with a substitute. When he fought against the Zero Squad again, he did not even put them in his eyes. This was the stark difference between them. You Zero Squad may be useful against me if there are 5 of you on top, but a 1v1 is a world of difference. Dustless said coldly as he glanced at the body of a soldier from the Hyogo division. He looked around, looking for the position of the other members, but he suddenly found himself bound by a transparent chain. What is this, the ghost path? It doesn't seem like it, but it's unusually strong. When he was about to move his body, Dustless suddenly found his right arm was bound by a blue light. This chain was completely suppressed by a high density of spiritual pressure and was unusually strong. Don't struggle, this is something I developed with great care. On the left, a fat woman's voice came. He looked up and saw Sayasu Tongsai holding the transparent chain. Is that so? Dustless glanced at Sayasu Tongsai, and the suffocating spiritual pressure from his body swept out and turned into a violent hurricane. At this stage, I have completely surpassed the dimension of Shinigami and Hollow. It's not a big deal even if you guys come at me together, let alone use this ridiculous thing to bind my actions. The so-called Zero Squad is just a... As soon as the voice fell, the chain that bound Dustless suddenly emitted a touch of fire, and it quickly extended towards Sayasu Tongsai. In the blink of an eye, it was close to her fingers. Let go! Shout Orokian Shumaru quickly shouted, and at the same time, she rushed out of Dustless's sight, and the thousands of skeletal arms behind her stabbed toward Dustless's face. Bakudo 81. Skybreaker. A transparent barrier appeared out of nowhere, and stood in front of Dustless like a mountain. It was very strong. The defense of a Sky Slasher was unimaginable, and it easily blocked the attack of the Shudora Thousand-Hand Maru. Dustless's indifferent expression loosened a little as he calmly sized up the Shudora Thousand-Handed Maru in front of him. Dustless said softly, "Get out of my way, you are not my opponent." Hearing this, Shudoro Senju Maru shook his head resolutely. His eyes were resolute and there was no room for him to back down. She stared at the transparent barrier in front of her, but her heart was filled with shock. The 81st binding path was something that she could shatter with a single stab, but she didn't expect it to be several times more powerful than before. Are you surprised? That's right. Your Squad Zero shouldn't be any younger than Head Captain Yamamoto, but your strength hasn't improved for thousands of years. If this continues, you'll be eliminated sooner or later. Looking at the Shidoruo Thousand-Hand Pill with a complicated expression, Dustless realized that he was unable to kill it. During his time in Soul Society, the only person who had helped him was Uno Hua Lai. Secondly, there was the Shura Thousand-Hand Pill. At this moment, Dustless's eyebrows twitched. He suddenly felt that his body was starting to loosen up, becoming soft and very fragile. What's going on? Dustless's expression changed rapidly as he muttered in confusion. Soldier Division's first soldier. Numiya Wangyue and Qilin Temple Tenchilu shouted at the same time. Immediately, The corpse of Soldier Division's first soldier reassembled and revived. This bald man. Your Squad 0 isn't strong, but you have a lot of strange abilities. Dustless wasn't surprised by this. This bald monk was just so strange, and his ability was just so heaven-defying. Back then, after he was dismembered by Yuhabak, he was revived by someone calling his name. But I'll just have to kill you one more time. Only then will I be able to kill you completely. Dustless took a step forward. Just as he was about to step forward, his body started to change again. Is your body starting to soften? Are your limbs starting to lose strength? Are you gradually losing your mind? You can't even concentrate your spiritual pressure? Sayako Tongxing's laughter was heard. There was a deep sense of pride in his tone as he said, "It's just as you said. Squad Zero's strength has reached the level of the Grim Reaper, and it's as difficult as ascending to the heavens for them to advance any further. Therefore, over the years, we've developed many other tools to deal with our enemies." The revived Soldier Division's first soldier stretched his body and laughed. "Actually, this is not bad. In the future, we'll use the tools to deal with Yuhabak. In your current state, you are not weaker than Yuhabak at all. In fact, in terms of physical attacks, Yuhabak is even weaker than you. Right now, you don't have the invincible strength, invincible defense, and invincible spiritual pressure like before. I'm sure you felt it too. Your bones and insides are starting to loosen up." Sayako Tongxing smiled with exultation. "This is a special drug I developed that can loosen the tissues of living creatures. Through the spiritual pressure chain just now, it has been injected into your body." Sensing the abnormality in his body, Dustless nodded silently. His expression didn't change as he asked calmly, "So? You want to kill me with this method?" Sayako Tongxing and the others shook their heads. Tenchilang of the Kirin Temple said in low spirits, "The Hogyoku in your body is too heaven-defying. We can't kill you. We can't even injure your wounds, and they haven't healed yet." The members of Squad 0 were very frustrated. "Therefore, we can only seal you." Chapter 1090. Dustless tried to mobilize the chakra in his body, but he was shocked to find that he could not move his limbs at all. "Give up. In fact, we did not limit your spiritual pressure at all. Spiritual pressure is something that cannot be limited. As long as a person's heart is still beating, spiritual pressure will continue to overflow. Not to mention, you have something like the Hogyoku." Sayako Tongsai's eyes were bright as he explained, "So we only limited the movement of your limbs. If you can't move your hands and legs, all your abilities are just for show." Hearing this, Dustless could not help but feel incredulous at the foresight of Team 0. If he could not move his hands and legs, the consequences were self-evident. He would be like a fish on the chopping board, waiting to be slaughtered. Dustless had a flash of inspiration, and asked, "What about Dojitsu?" "I know Dojitsu too." A soldier from the Hyobi division laughed confidently and said calmly, "What a coincidence. Yawatch also knows Dojitsu, so we have also researched a special item to deal with him." In the next second, Dustless's eyes closed uncontrollably. "We can't limit your Dojitsu, but we can paralyze your visual nerves so that you can never open your eyes. In this way, your Dojitsu will be finished." At the same time, the members of Team 0 looked at each other, and Yamamoto Okuchi pounced on Dustless. They held extraordinary black bandages in their hands and skillfully tied up Dustless. In just a few seconds, Dustless was tied up like a rice dumpling. Only his mouth was exposed, and his hands and legs were tightly bound. Head Commander Yamamoto took out a stone chair that he had prepared in advance and placed Dustless on it, and then firmly restrained him. "In this way you can't move." The members of Team 0 were all deflated, and they stretched their bodies as if relieved of a heavy burden. Dustless sat quietly on the stone chair, indifferent. "You really didn't want to be sealed, did you? Whether it's the truth-seeking jade or Konsusanu, you don't need your limbs or eyes to activate them. You can just use your mind. You can definitely counterattack, even if your eyes are restricted." System Ling Er's voice sounded in his mind, full of confusion. Just like Uchiha Madara, after resurrecting, he can still use Konsusanu without eyes, and Dustless can do the same. Break the seal? Isn't it good to be sealed like this? Dustless chuckled and didn't care. From this battle, he understood a lot of things, especially the Hogyoku in his body. It was not as simple as Dustless thought. He could be 100% sure that Urahara Kisuk had done something to it. He could take advantage of this time to solve the problem of the Hogyoku. "Aren't you going to kill me?" Dustless asked calmly after his observation hockey extended and locked in their direction. It didn't matter to him whether he had eyes or not. Their every move couldn't escape Dustless's perception. It was funny to see this group of self-righteous clowns immersed in the joy of victory. This guy. Several members of Team Zero frowned and looked at a guard of the Hattori department, waiting for the bald monk to make a decision. "We can't kill him at the moment, and we haven't cut off his connection with the Hogyoku. Even if we kill him, his body will automatically repair itself. It's meaningless," a guard of the Hattori department said in a deep voice. Hee hee. These words can only fool a 3-year-old kid. Even if his eyes were sealed, Dustless could only see through the heart of a god of the Hattori department. He said bluntly, "You keep me just in case." The tone of the question was very affirmative. Dustless said, "The reason why you keep me is to prevent Yawatch from killing the Spirit King and replacing him with me after he wakes up. This way, the whole world won't collapse." Hearing this, the old face of a god of the Hattori department suddenly darkened. He did have such a plan. Fate is full of twists and turns and is full of unknowns. Once the Spirit King is killed, the 3 realms, Soul Society, the modern world, and Hueco Mundo, will collapse. Replacing him with Dustless can prevent such a disaster. In fact, it was a backup plan. Everyone looked at the guard of the Hattori department. Seeing the change in his expression, they knew that Dustless was telling the truth. These bastards are just getting caught in their own trap. They deserve to be killed by Yawatch. Dustless sneered in his heart. The Zero Squad was very loyal to the Spirit King, but they were also very cruel. The Spirit King's arms, legs, heart, and consciousness were all cut off from his body. Among Yawatch's personal guards, one was the Spirit King's left arm, and the other was the Spirit King's heart. According to Dustless's guess, Yawatch himself was very likely a part of the Spirit King, and so was Jugram. In a sense, the Spirit King's right arm was Yukatake Joshiru. "Didn't you want to be the Spirit King? You should be thanking me." Seeing that his plan was exposed, the guard of the Hattori department admitted, "The Spirit King is the symbol of protecting the world. Naturally, we can't lose him. It's normal to have a backup." "You guys are so hypocritical. You talk about benevolence and morality every day. But have you ever been loyal to the Spirit King? Who cut off the Spirit King's limbs? You guys know very well. The Zero Squad is loyal to the Spirit King because he is the chisel of this world. That's why they respect him. But from what I see, you guys are using the Spirit King to maintain the balance of the world. It's no wonder that the Quincy hate you guys so much." The corner of Dustless's mouth curled into a mocking smile. He disdained to mock them. In this world, only the Zero Squad could come into contact with the Spirit King. Obviously, cutting off the Spirit King's limbs was related to them in countless ways. It was completely self-inflicted. In order to maintain the balance of the world, the Zero Squad cut off the Spirit King's limbs. In this way, the hatred between the Quincy and the Grim Reaper could be explained. Chapter 1091. One could survive a natural disaster, but one could not survive a self-inflicted disaster. Since the Spirit King's arms, legs and heart were all chopped off, it was only natural for the Quincher led by Yawatch to view him as the Grim Reaper. "Where should we lock this guy for now? He's too dangerous, and it's not suitable to keep him in the Spirit King Palace," Sword God Wang Yu said in a deep voice. He was fine before the fight, but after the fight, his self-esteem was shattered. They were not on the same level at all. Especially when Dustless's voice was light. He was not worried at all. Perhaps he deliberately let himself be captured and waited until he was in the Spirit King Palace to rebel and take advantage of the situation to attack the Spirit King. If that's the case, let's put him in the first team's quarters, and I'll watch over him personally. Head Captain Yamamoto said decisively, and there was a hint of dominance in his tone. The head captain was on the same level as Division Zero's first soldier and Kirin Temple's Tenchalu. There was no difference in status, and none of them dared to guarantee that they could severely injure Yamamoto in a 1v1. "You'll come begging me sooner or later." Dustless was trapped in the chair, unable to move. Other than being able to speak, he could not even move his fingers. Super scientists like Sayaso Toshio and Shidoro Senju Maru were indeed powerful. We're all Grim Reapers. Although we've parted ways now, I might as well tell you an important piece of news for the sake of our former comrades. Within 10 years, Yawatch will wake up. The members of Division 0 were stunned, and they looked at Head Captain Yamamoto in unison. I did seal him back then, but even Unohana Hakuryu, Unohana Retsu, didn't know about this. How did you know about it? Old Yamamoto's face fell. This was his biggest secret. Everyone thought that Yawatch was dead, but that was not the case. As a part of the Spirit King's body, Yawatch could not be killed. Once he was killed, the entire world would collapse. 1,000 years ago, in a helpless situation, he only took Yawatch's heartbeat, consciousness, and strength. In the end, Yawatch was completely sealed. My pupil technique can extract the memories of others. The last time I went to Hueco Mundo, that is, when I killed Ghost Yen Cheng, I happened to meet two Quincy who attacked me. They both have the ability of Holy Word. I extracted their memories and learned that Yawatch will definitely wake up in 10 years. Everyone, enjoy the rest of your leisurely life, hee. Dustless laughed sinisterly. Even though his eyes had been sealed, he could still vaguely see the ugly expressions on their faces. The most difficult enemy to deal with was an enemy like Yawatch. It was not difficult to defeat him, but because of his special status, he could not kill him. As for Sosuke Aizen, Dustless didn't mention it. Compared to someone like Yawatch, Sosuke Aizen was just a fledgling. Shinozaki Ichigo could deal with him. Of course, Dustless stole Isshin Shiba's wife, Kurosaki Shingo, so he might not even be able to be born. You don't have to worry about that. A soldier from the War Commander Division said coldly. Time flew, and 10 days passed in the blink of an eye. Due to the Great Purge launched by Dustless, all the captains of Gotei 13 were injured. Only Old Man Yamamoto was safe and sound. The rest of the captains were all heavily injured, and almost everyone was in a state of near death. Dustless himself was also handed over to Yamamoto. Unfortunately, he was sentenced to 100,000 years. When Sosuke Aizen failed, it was only 20,000 years. When it was Dustless's turn, it was several times longer, and he was permanently imprisoned in Abyss of Hell. Sure enough, I can't underestimate the Zero Squad. Those black technologies are really useful. In the dark abyss of Hell, Dustless was surprised that he couldn't move his body. He wanted to use all his skills, but he couldn't control his body. It was as if all his limbs were cut off, and nothing was obedient. Only his head was left. Forget it, let's deal with the Hogyoku first. Thinking of the strange state of the Hogyoku, Dustless's face turned cold, and his majestic spiritual power directly invaded the Hogyoku. The world inside the Hogyoku was just like its appearance. The inside was a mysterious purple world. Dustless was floating in the sky. What a killjoy! I was looking forward to it. Floating in the sky, Dustless said uninterestedly. The scenery was extremely monotonous. There was only purple mist rolling around, and there were no other creatures. The whole world was dead silent. Master, that's not right. It's because the scenery is monotonous that it has a different kind of scenery. A girl in purple appeared out of thin air. Her hair was dancing in the wind, and her delicate face was very beautiful. However, Dustless wasn't interested at all. Instead, a cold light flashed in the corner of his mouth. His body disappeared in an instant and appeared in front of the Hogyoku's consciousness. Dustless looked indifferent, and his flashing fingers directly crushed her chest. Boom, boom, boom. The abdomen of the Hogyoku's consciousness was directly cut open by Dustless, and a hole the size of a human head appeared. It was extremely horrifying. Are you surprised? Seeing the Hogyoku's consciousness looking at him inconceivably, Dustless sneered. Do you think I don't know anything? You should be something created by Urahara Kisuke. You transferred Ryatsu to me before, but it wasn't to help me at all. Instead, you wanted to disintegrate me from the inside. In other words, you wanted to explode me with Ryatsu. If it wasn't for the Jubi, I might have been finished. Urahara Kisuke, that bastard, is really vicious. Chapter 1092. Dustless sneered again and again. No wonder Urahara Kisuke gave him the Hogyoku so readily. This Hogyoku was a deadly poison. If it was Aizen Sosuke, he might have exploded. Who is Urahara Kisuke? I don't know him. Hogyoku's consciousness tried to deny it and argued with a red face. I'm just the consciousness of Hogyoku. I don't know Urahara Kisuke, and I don't know who he is. Stubborn. Dustless sneered and retorted, you don't have to deny it. No matter what the final outcome is, I will completely erase your consciousness. Hogyoku doesn't need consciousness. The only one it serves is me. Dustless said indifferently. This sentence sent Hogyoku's consciousness to hell. This seemingly harmless girl was actually extremely vicious. Every time his Ryatsu was exhausted, Hogyoku would automatically provide Ryatsu. The degree of violence was far beyond the limit that the Shinigami's body could withstand. Dustless's body was Jubi. Otherwise, he would have turned into a pile of blood mist and dyed Soul Society red. And the most important thing is, speaking of this, Wu Chen's tone sank slightly. He directly exposed her nature and said, the extent of my understanding of the Hogyoku is more than your consciousness. Only when the host feels death, Hogyoku will prompt the host to evolve. Whether it was facing Yamamoto Captain or Team Zero, I didn't feel fear. Why would I evolve? It's nothing more than you seeing that I was suppressed at that time and tempted me to borrow your Ryatsu. It would be best if you could explode my body. Speaking of this, Dustless's eyes emitted a white light, and his killing intent was awe-inspiring. He could be 100% sure that this so-called Hogyoku's consciousness had a problem, and she wanted him to die quickly. Moreover, even if it had nothing to do with Hogyoku's consciousness, Dustless would not hesitate to kill her. After all, no one could be at ease with an inexplicable thing in their body. Master, I am sincere to you. Hogyoku's consciousness moved lightly and approached Dustless. Her posture was extremely ambiguous, and she almost fell into Dustless's arms. Let go. The hoarse and bone-chilling voice was emotionless, like a machine that was cold and isolated from the world. The light body fragrance followed Hogyoku's consciousness into Dustless's nostrils. Although the taste was not bad, his face was still as cold as ever. Since Master is so heartless. The consciousness of the Hogyoku retracted her slender fingers, looked around Dustless and danced in a circle, circling to the back of Dustless. The tip of her fingers overflowed with countless sharp points. Then you can go to hell. Poochie. Dustless's body was penetrated by the sharp claws. The Hogyoku's consciousness was extremely ruthless. The 5 fingers sank deep into the brain and almost instantly took the life of a creature. Once the head was pierced, anyone would die without a doubt. Hogyoku's consciousness was dumbfounded. The strange touch made her somewhat overwhelmed. She did not hit Dustless at all. His whole body seemed to be transparent. Finally showing your true nature. I was very appreciative of your tearful acting. I thought you could come up with a gorgeous attack to kill my boring time. After all, I was sentenced to 100,000 years. Who would have thought that in the end, it would be such a crude attack? It's so disappointing. Turning his head and looking at the Hogyoku's consciousness with a smile, Dustless's fingertips emitted a light, and indifferently said, breaking down number 4, White Thunder. Poochie. The forehead of the Hogyoku's consciousness was immediately pierced by Dustless. Its body gradually became transparent and showed signs of disappearing at any time. Even if you kill me, it's useless. I can tell you clearly that I am indeed the consciousness of the Hogyoku. As you think, Urahara Kisuke did do something inside the Hogyoku. Originally, it was to prevent dealing with Aizen Sosuke. Who would have thought that it would be used on you in the end? The Hogyoku's consciousness screamed hysterically, you killed me as the consciousness of the Hogyoku, which means that you will forever lose the possibility of evolution. This is the result of your own actions. A man's words are kind when he is about to die. A bird's cry is sad when it is about to die. How can you be worse than a bird? After looking at the Hogyoku's consciousness in boredom, Dustless raised his hand and annihilated it. Breaking down number 54. Waste Flame. Poochie. The disc-shaped flame shattered the Hogyoku's consciousness, making it disappear forever between heaven and earth, without any breath. It doesn't matter whether I evolve or not, as long as you provide me with infinite Ryatsu. Dustless saw through it. You can't have your cake and eat it too. If he had to choose one of the two, he would rather have infinite Ryatsu. Rather than evolution, it was better to say that he turned from a normal human into a worm. After all, Aizen Sosuke was a lesson. Spiritual power came out of the Hogyoku world. Dustless tried to move his limbs and open his eyes, but found that he was still restricted forever. This damn black technology is really troublesome. Inside the dark hell, Dustless sighed with a headache. His body was completely out of control. Ah! Captain Dustless, it seems that you are very distressed. Messy footsteps sounded, followed by a voice. You injured all the Shinigami with overwhelming strength. The whole Soul Society is in an uproar. Hearing this, Dustless raised his eyebrows slightly and spread out his observation hockey, carefully perceiving the traces of the visitors. After a few breaths, he understood who they were. Captain Ikamaru Jin and Captain Aizen. This is really a rare guest. You took such a big risk to see me. If the head captain finds out, it will be terrible. You two little bastards came at the right time. I was worried that it was too cold here. You should come and give me firewood immediately. After knowing that it was Ikamaru Jin and Aizen Sosuke who came, Dustless smiled, knowing that it was time for him to break out of prison. He didn't need to think to know what Aizen Sosuke came for. Chapter 1093. Looking at the two masters in front of him, Dustless never thought that Aizen and Ikamaru Jin were this cute. Although I can escape by using the truth-seeking jade and Kansusanu, it would cause too much of a commotion. It's better to hide behind the scenes. Dustless made up his mind. If he didn't want to expose himself, he could only rely on Aizen and Jin. In fact, the way to save Dustless was very simple. All he had to do was destroy his entire body. That way, the various items set up in his body would naturally be destroyed as well. The Jubi's physique would help Dustless condense his body. By then, all the items that bound his body would be broken. Yo, you two dogs actually came. Wuxia didn't even think about it. He directly cursed. This was the only way to provoke Aizen and Jin's anger and force them to kill him. Seriously, the head captain is getting more and more useless. He actually sent 2 pieces of trash over. If he wants to get useful information from me, he should at least send 2 death gods over. He actually sent 2 dogs to interrogate me. How dare he? Dustless completely ignored the presence of Sosuke Aizen and Jin Ikamaru. He was afraid that they couldn't hear him, so he deliberately raised his voice. Due to the unique structure of the infernal hell, in just a few seconds, profanities such as dog basket and garbage were echoing. Croak, 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 croak. Countless crows flew above Aizen and Jin's heads. Both of them walked over with dark faces. Aizen Sosuke was the most ferocious of them all. His left arm was chopped off by Dustless, and his chest was cut by Dustless a few days ago. He was almost killed by Dustless. Originally, when he came to see Dustless today, he was full of resentment. Now that he was called a dog basket and trash by Dustless, his heart was instantly filled with anger. Figure out who you are. I can kill you at any time now. Don't try to provoke me. Sosuke Aizen's murderous expression was particularly gloomy. Sosuke Aizen's entire body was covered in a layer of frost as he circled around Dustless. However, Dustless didn't appreciate his kindness. His next words made Sosuke Aizen vomit blood. With your dog basket? What kind of joke is this? You're just a defeated opponent. Killing trash like you would only dirty my hands. Dustless opened his mouth and cursed. He didn't have the demeanor of a former captain. He was even worse than a common hooligan. He mercilessly mocked. You, Sosuke Aizen, Jin Ikamaru, and Higashi-sensei, you are a perfect trio of trash, a match made in heaven. Aizen Sosuke and Ikamaru Jin almost lost their balance and fell to the ground. You bastard. Sosuke Aizen's eyes were spitting fire. He wanted to fight back fiercely, but he was shocked to find that the only word he could think of was a bastard. Sosuke Aizen paid attention to his manners and never cursed in his life. He didn't know how to curse at all. Dustless pointed at his nose and scolded him. Sosuke Aizen didn't have anything to say back. He felt particularly aggrieved. His neck turned red and thick. Jin, shut this crazy bastard up, or else. Humph. Sosuke Aizen didn't have any means to deal with such a rascal. He didn't want to kill Dustless for the time being. He still had many questions to ask, so he could only leave it to Jin. Understood, Captain Aizen. Jin smiled and walked to Dustless's side. As soon as he stopped, He heard a harsh voice. Captain Ikamara Jin, do you know my 3 team members? Dustless suddenly asked, his tone revealing a touch of pity. Jin was startled and looked at Aizen. Aizen nodded, indicating that there was no need to rush. Jin said, Captain Dustless, what do you want to say? Do you want us to take care of your 3 teammates? Of course, but you must first answer my question with Captain Aizen. No. You're wrong. Just as Jin's voice fell, Dustless pitifully said, my 3 team members are all beautiful young ladies. I'm not young anymore, but I haven't even tasted a woman yet. Jin's expression stiffened. He sensed something was wrong. He looked at Aizen from the corner of his eyes and saw his unwavering gaze. He endured his scalp and asked, Captain Dustless, what do you want? You even understand this, Captain Ikamara Jin. Are you a pig? Wu Chen continued to blabber, my 3 beautiful team members, especially the blonde Lanju Matsumoto, I often dream of having sex with her. Originally, I planned to have them for myself after conquering Soul Society, and then have sex with them every night, leading a drunken life. Who would have thought that? You bastard. Without waiting for Dustless to finish, Ikamaru Jin interrupted him word by word. He was clenching his teeth so hard that they were about to shatter. His entire body was filled with killing intent. His entire being was like 1,000-year-old ice, emitting a coldness that could destroy the world. Jin was breathing heavily. His lungs were about to explode. Dustless dared to talk about his childhood sweetheart in front of him. How could he bear it? It seems like it's time. Using his observation hockey, Dustless felt the strangeness around him. The dark space around him was frozen. It was all caused by Aizen and Jin's murderous intent. Dustless was sure that once Aizen and Jin got the information they wanted, they would definitely kill him. At that time, Dustless would be able to escape the restriction of his body and use the Jubi's body to resurrect again. He deliberately added salt to Jin's and Aizen's wounds. Chapter 1094. Aizen and Ikamaru Jin both wanted to vomit blood. They've seen people with bad mouths, but this is the first time they've seen such a shameless person. This kind of person is extremely strong and difficult to deal with. Dustless is the best example. Captain Aizen, this guy doesn't listen to reason or force. Let's teach him a lesson. Ikamaru Jin looked at Dustless ferociously. He suggested, let's give him a taste of pain. That way, he'll be able to speak better. Aizen and Ikamaru Jin don't know how to swear. Soul Society's people don't know how to swear. Only Dustless knows how to break the rules. Did you hear that, Captain Dustless? Aizen looked down at Dustless and asked. He wanted to talk to Dustless like a winner, but he didn't expect it to be like this. His patience and the lines he prepared were burned away. What happened between you and Captain Yamamoto after I fainted? Aizen felt aggrieved. He lost his left arm and felt a sharp pain in his shoulder. He fainted because of Dustless during such an important occasion. Of course, it was no wonder that Aizen's mood had changed so much. He had always thought highly of himself, but he was defeated by Dustless. He couldn't even fight back. It was a huge blow to him. So you came for Team 0. Wu Chen was suddenly enlightened, but he still said casually, what can I do if I don't tell you? You're just a wastrel. People like you will always be a mouse hiding in the dark crevices. Still disdainful of Sosuke Aizen, Dustless didn't put him in his eyes at all. His tone was full of contempt and disdain from head to toe. You bastard. Aizen's veins bulged. He felt Dustless's tone was like talking to a worthless ant. I was wrong to talk nonsense with you. Aizen looked at Jin. Jin immediately came over and untied the black bandage around Dustless's chest. It emitted a blue light. Aizen's angry eyes were replaced by fire. So, you came for Hogyoku. I knew you were up to no good. Dustless thought for a moment and came up with a countermeasure. He sent a wisp of spiritual power into Hogyoku. Urahara Kisuk. I still have to thank you for controlling Aizen in the same way. This is the best. Hogyoku's consciousness inspired Dustless. In the future, the spiritual power that Wuchen hid in the Hogyoku could disguise as the consciousness of the Hogyoku and trick Aizen Sosuke into serving him. This was also inspired by Urahara Kisuk, and Wu Chen had to thank him. Puchi. Aizen didn't care about Dustless's life and directly tore off the Hogyoku embedded in Dustless's body. he shouted crazily. You mortals don't deserve such a noble thing. The Hogyoku is mine. Looking at the crazed Sosuke Aizen, Dustless had a smug look on his face. Perhaps Aizen himself didn't realize that he couldn't maintain his former wisdom when facing Dustless. It was completely because of the blow and the pressure. Jin, get rid of this guy. Aizen glanced at Dustless and excitedly took Dustless's Hogyoku and left. Killing him will only raise suspicions. Losing a captain alive will definitely cause a huge commotion. Ikamaru Jin's expression darkened as he hesitantly said. Dustless dared to flirt with Matsumoto Ranjaku in front of him. This touched Jin's bottom line. He would kill him if he could. It doesn't matter. Did you forget my ability? Aizen touched his eyes, and in the blink of an eye, he regained his former wisdom. He said calmly, that's a small matter. After killing him, I will use Zanpakuto, Kyoka Suigetsu to confuse everyone. Understood, Captain Aizen. Jin promised and looked at Dustless with murderous eyes. Aizen nodded and looked deeply at Dustless. He said, farewell, Captain Dustless. This is the last time we meet. After that, Aizen disappeared into the dark space. Only his cold voice could be heard. Bankai. Kamikaze gun. The sharp saber light came head-on and instantly obliterated Dustless. Inside the saber slit, a special venom overflowed and began to slowly erode Dustless's skin. You're the first person to enjoy my Bankai treatment. Even Sosuke Aizen doesn't know my true Bankai ability. Ikamaru Jin had a sly smile on his face. He was very proud and arrogant. Don't know? Don't be ridiculous. In his eyes, you are just a kid who hasn't grown up yet. Wu Chen sneered. At the same time, his body began to melt slowly. The cells in every part of his body were about to devour his whole body. Seeing this, Dustless didn't show any fear. Instead, he felt relieved. He had to thank Jin. You can slowly wait for your death, and enjoy the last moments of your life. Too lazy to waste his breath on a person who was about to die, Ikamaru Jin slowly left. Idiot! Seeing Jin leave, Dustless's new limbs began to condense. A new arm appeared, and it was different from before. It could move nimbly. Thanks to Silver Ikamaru destroying his body, Dustless was able to move. Chapter 1095. His uncontrollable limbs gradually regained movement. His legs and feet, as well as the spiritual pressure and chakra in his body, could be mobilized freely. In less than a blink of an eye, Wu Chen's body was reformed and restored to its original state. I'll lend you Hogyoku for a while. When you're no longer of any value. Humph. Dustless's face was filled with killing intent as he disappeared from Abyss. As for the corpse, he didn't need to worry about it. After all, Aizen Sosuke was using Kyoka Suigetsu to trick Soul Society, so he didn't need to worry about it. Inside the 4th Division's building. Ever since Dustless destroyed Soul Society with his destructive power, the 4th Division hadn't settled down at all. Recently, they had been immersed in a busy atmosphere. That guy should be fine, right? In the captain's office, Unohana Retsu couldn't be bothered to rest for a while. She couldn't help but think of Dustless's face as she muttered to herself anxiously. Before, Dustless told Unohana Retsu not to act rashly and to act as usual. Thus, she had been quietly waiting for Dustless's news. Something? What could happen to me? The space behind Unohana Retsu twisted and Dustless came out. He hugged Unohana Retsu's waist from behind and his little hands started moving around. Unohana Retsu was stunned and turned around. What entered her eyes was Dustless's eternal smile. How did you get out? Unohana Retsu rubbed her eyes. After confirming that it wasn't an illusion, she said in shock. You should have been injected with some special medicine by Shudora Thousandhand Maru and Sayaso Tongsai. Your body shouldn't be able to move. Feeling the little hands moving around in her body, Unohana Retsu's face turned red and she glared at Dustless. Isn't this why you called me here? Although she was unhappy with the little hands moving around in her body, Unohana Retsu didn't stop them. I was suppressed. But Ikamaru Jin and Aizen Sosuke, those two idiots, wanted to release me. What could I do? Dustless shrugged and said helplessly. The item developed by Sayaso Tongsai and Shudoro Thousandhand Maru was only used to restrict Dustless's body. Once the body is destroyed, it also means that Dustless will be liberated. This was all thanks to Sosuke Aizen and Jin Ikamaru. Where is your Hogyoku? Seeing the Hogyoku disappear from Dustless's chest, Unohana Retsu was shocked. Did Aizen, Sosuke and Ikamaru Jin take it? Unohana Lai was quite worried, and a look of anxiety appeared on her face. She said in a low voice, "Your current identity is not suitable for you to travel around Soul Society. I will help you take back the Hogyoku." Hearing this, Dustless felt a surge of warmth in his heart as he pulled Unohana into his embrace. "It doesn't matter. Aizen Sosuke likes Hogyoku so much, you might as well let him play with it for a few days." Dustless saw through the situation and smiled. "Moreover, lending Hogyoku to Aizen Sosuke will give me interest. I can't ask for more than that." Dustless's face was filled with killing intent. "My consciousness is inside the Hogyoku. During the time I lend it to Aizen Sosuke, I will disguise myself as the Hogyoku's consciousness and control My first goal is to control Sosuke, Aizen and Quincy to start a war." Unohana Retsu's eyes lit up. It would be best if she could use Sosuke Aizen to start a war with Quincy. However, she seemed to have thought of something and wrinkled her nose. "Speaking of which, Team Zero actually didn't execute you. If it were me, I would have erased your body and bones." "Then you are really vicious, Retsu." Hearing this, Dustless smiled bitterly. He was speechless. This seemingly gentle woman was actually quite thorny. If he wasn't careful, he would be in a mess. After the Spirit King dies, the world will collapse. They keep me, in fact, it's equivalent to keeping a safety guarantee. If the Spirit King really unfortunately dies, then take me, this spare tire, as a replacement. Wu Chen sneered again and again. His laughter was full of sarcasm. According to Dustless's guess, the people who cut off the Soul King's limbs were Team Zero. The reason was simple. The Soul King was built to stabilize the soul. To a certain extent, it was an amalgamation of souls. And the soul was what determined the spiritual pressure. Therefore, the Soul King couldn't have consciousness or move. Its existence was only symbolic. Once the Soul King gained consciousness, as an amalgamation of souls, it would mean that no one in the world could be its opponent. This was the real reason why Yawatch was so desperate to devour the Soul King. "Where do you plan to go now?" Changing the topic, Unohana Retsu suddenly asked, "Soul Society is no longer suitable for you." Hearing this, Dustless lightly nodded. Now that he was a prisoner, it was naturally not suitable for him to appear in Soul Society. The only places that could accommodate him were the modern world and Hueco Mundo. Hueco Mundo was Sosuke Aizen's territory. Without a doubt, there was only one place he could go, the modern world. "Soon, I will leave Soul Society and go to the modern world. It might be a few years before we meet again. Retsu, before that, there is an extremely important matter that needs to be done." Dustless's frivolous expression disappeared as he said in a serious tone, "Say it." Unohana Retsu solemnly nodded. She had never been this serious before. "I am about to leave Soul Society. Of course, I need to do some pop activities. Otherwise, I will never have the chance to be with you again." Unohana Retsu's pretty face twitched. She almost lost her balance and fell. Chapter 1096. Unohana Retsu didn't know whether to laugh or cry as she looked at Dustless. She didn't expect him to be so serious about something like this. There's no need to be so shocked. No matter how important it is, it's nothing compared to this. It's just a small matter that isn't even worth mentioning. Dustless said as if this was how it should be. Then, his hands became even more restless as he helped Unohana Retsu take off her clothes. Her snow-white skin was exposed to the air as his hands started to tease Unohana Retsu. You bastard." Unohana Retsu's face turned red as her breathing quickened. Her face was red, and it was very seductive. "Wait, I still have something to ask you." Unohana Retsu grabbed onto Dustless's hands and said with a firm tone, "The creation of humans is beneficial to the entire universe." Dustless complained. But in the end, he took his hands back out of boredom. It was quite painful. He had been in Soul Society for almost a year, and he still hadn't enjoyed the taste of a woman. "Speaking of which, why did you save the two Quintia that day?" Recalling Ikamaru-jin and Mayuri's report, Unohana Retsu said, Captain Ikamaru-jin and Captain Mayuri accused you of saving the two Quincher. Quincher? Are you talking about Gardes and Bombay Ita? Two beautiful figures appeared in Dustless's mind. He couldn't help but imagine the scene between the two, and he couldn't help but sob. My Tao heart isn't stable. I've been having sex for no reason these days. Worms have invaded my brain. Dustless shook his head and smiled bitterly. He frowned and said, They were my spies, hiding in Wandenrake to spy on Yawatch. Who knew that they would be exposed? Dustless calmed down as he recalled the Quincher incident. He said, maybe it was Aizen and Jugram working together. They purposely threw them into Soul Society to bait me. In the end, just like what you saw, I did save them. Unohana Retsu nodded slightly. She had also guessed it. Her face suddenly turned cold. Aizen Sosuke is setting himself on fire. Quincy is unimaginably terrifying. Sooner or later, he will be devoured along with his bones. Haha. You don't have to worry about that. Aizen is ambitious, and he won't submit to anyone. When the time comes, I'll pretend to be Hogyoku's consciousness and provoke them. Dustless sneered with his eyes glowing red. There was a saying that a mountain could not hold two tigers. Aizen Sosuke wanted to become a god and become one of the top figures in the world. This way, he was destined to clash with Annihilation's ideals. There was only one god in Quincy's heart. Yawatch. In fact, just as Dustless thought, Jugram and Aizen really did have a conflict, and the situation was extremely hot. We are only in the temporary stage of cooperation. I don't need to listen to your orders. Be clear, I am not your subordinate. In Rukuin Street, there was a dead silence. There were no living creatures. Aizen Sosuke and Ikamaru Jin were walking side by side. The person opposite them had golden hair and blue eyes. He was cold and emotionless. He was no different from a block of ice. This person was the current leader of Quincy, Jugram. I'm talking about a fair treaty. I helped you before, and now it's your turn to help us. Immediately destroy the Gotei 13th Shinigami. Don't say you can't do it. The captains have all been heavily injured by that man. With your ability you should be able to kill them easily. Jugram said coldly. His voice was soft and dignified, but there was an invisible order in his tone. You? Aizen Sosuke's face was filled with killing intent, and his ryatsu was fluctuating. He sneered, the so-called fair treaty is only effective against people of the same level as me. If I kill you now, do I still need to fulfill it? Aizen Sosuke was extremely calm. Facing Jugram, Aizen Sosuke was not afraid. Actually, he had long since gotten used to Jugram. He was very annoyed by Jugram, who was merely a lackey. Is that so? Hearing this, Jugram's expression didn't change. His emotionless face suddenly had a strange smile, and he threatened, if I tell Soul Society about the alliance between Quincy and Aizen Sosuke, what do you think will happen? Aizen Sosuke narrowed his eyes, and a dangerous green light shot out from his eyes as he asked, are you threatening me? You want to force me to submit? Jugram shook his head and said indifferently, this isn't a threat. I'm just urging you to fulfill the terms of our cooperation. Since Annihilation has helped you, you must repay us. Otherwise, our cooperation will be voided, and you will also be punished. With that, Jugram casually waved his hand, and a black crack appeared. This was Quincy's shadow domain. Jugram stepped into it and disappeared. Captain Aizen, how should we deal with these ambitious Quinces? Although we managed to get rid of Captain Wu Chen with their help, it seems like we're in trouble now. Ikamaru Jin said in a distressed tone. Aizen Sosuke didn't say a word, he just quietly looked at the blue sphere in his hand. Hogyoku. His mind was wandering. What Aizen Sosuke didn't know was that the conversation between him and Jugram had been heard by Dustless. Chapter 1097. Dustless's mental power was inside the Hogyoku. Naturally, he could hear the conversation between Aizen and Jugram. It was hard not to know. TSK. I knew that Aizen and Jugram would have a conflict, but I didn't expect it to happen so soon. Dustless hugged Unohana Retsu as he muttered to himself, causing Unohana Retsu to roll her eyes. Especially when she saw Dustless's evil smile. Unohana Retsu knew that he was up to no good. Looking around, there were clothes all over the floor in the captain's office. There was no lack of women's private clothes. Without a doubt, they were all Unohana Retsu's. After coaxing, cheating, and signing many unfair contracts, Dustless finally plucked Unohana Retsu, this rose with thorns. Fortunately, after taking away her most important thing, he didn't get hurt. If that old head captain knew that we were doing this in the captain's office, I wonder if he would vomit blood. Dustless smiled as he thought of the strict and rigid Yamamoto. I don't know. Unohana Retsu shook her head and smiled. But he would definitely be so angry that his face would turn black. Dustless nodded. Unohana Retsu had already started putting on her clothes. However, there were tears everywhere and there were bloodstains on the bed. Without a doubt, it was Unohana Retsu's. Looking at Unohana Retsu with joy, Dustless felt a sense of accomplishment. He was very happy to have taken the virginity of a 1,000-year-old woman. He even forgot about the conversation he heard through the Hogyoku. Hurry up and put on your clothes. Unohana Retsu picked up the jacket on the table and threw it at Dustless. Her face was burning hot. Just as she was about to put on the captain's haori, she remembered that her haori was torn to pieces by the hungry Dustless. Even her underwear was riddled with holes. Don't change your clothes. Just wear this. It's cool in such a hot day. Seeing Unohana Retsu walking towards the closet, Dustless quickly pulled her over. Cool air. Unohana's forehead darkened. Her jade-like hands reached towards Dustless's waist and twisted 360 degrees. How do you expect me to go out in this? Stop it, it hurts. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Dustless pecked Unohana's face with lightning speed and said seriously, You don't understand. This is proof of love. Unohana looked at Dustless speechlessly. She felt helpless and suddenly asked, You said that Jugram and Sosuke Aizen had a conflict. What's going on? Dustless did not hide anything and told her the truth. Now that he had a relationship with Unohana, he had completely tied her to his chariot. I see. After a while, after hearing Dustless's explanation, Unohana Retsu analyzed wisely. I know that Jugram. He was Yawacha's subordinate 1,000 years ago. Dustless declined to comment. Jugram's age was indeed above 1,000 years old. When he was very young, he began to follow Uric Bach to conquer the world. This is a good opportunity. We can definitely sow discord between Sosuke Aizen and Jugram. Unohana Retsu analyzed carefully and said like a female strategist, Aizen views Hogyoku as more important than his own life. We can definitely use this as a breakthrough. You're really a sinister woman. Dustless pretended to be afraid. If I abandon you one day, you'll definitely kill me. Including this world, Dustless had already experienced 3 worlds. He was an old fox among old foxes. Naturally, he understood what Unohana Retsu meant. Disguise as Quincy and steal the Hogyoku. At that time, Sosuke Aizen would definitely go crazy. But I don't have any Quincy. Candace and Bambiita have already been exposed. If we want to frame Jugram and cause a conflict between him and Sosuke Aizen, we need a Quincy that can use Holy Script. Also, it has to be someone from Yawacha's camp. Dustless felt a headache coming on. Sosuke Aizen's intelligence was unquestionable. Jugram was also an old monster who had lived for 1,000 years. Neither of them was easy to deal with. Alright, Captain Nye has a lot of Quincy. Unohana Retsu had a flash of inspiration and said, Mayuri? Hearing that, Wu Chen was incomparably conflicted. Could the thing in Nirvana cocoon be human? Even a normal person would be crippled by him. Dustless did not even need to think about it. The people from the 12th Division would definitely be as perverted as Mayuri. There's also her. Suddenly he slapped his forehead, and a slender and elegant girl appeared in his mind. Kurosaki Makino. She was the mother of the future main character Kurosaki Ichigo. However, she was already taken away by Dustless and Isshin Shiba was a bachelor. It was still a mystery whether Kurosaki Ichigo could be born. Although Kurosaki Mako did not have the ability to use Holy Script, she might be able to fake it. Her? Don't tell me you're talking about the 2 Quincy called Candace and Bambiita? Looking at Dustless, Unohana Retsu said in a strange tone, I heard that they are both hot girls. They're very pretty. Huh. Hearing this, Dustless was stunned, and then he argued with a flushed face. I'm not that kind of pervert. I have a bottom line when I do things. Do you think I'm that kind of person? No, you don't. Unohana Retsu thought for a while and then remembered what Dustless did just now. You weren't before, but I believe you now. Dustless was petrified. He looked at Unohana Retsu, who had a faint smile on her face. He could not show any weakness at this time. He did not hesitate to pounce on Unohana Retsu. Chapter 1098. Time flew by, and it was already the morning of the next day. Unohana Retsu was tortured by Dustless to the point that she didn't even have the strength to walk. She barely managed to walk out of the 4th Division at noon. Her walking posture was also very strange, swaying left and right. Unohana Retsu wanted to cry but had no tears. This was all thanks to Dustless. That enemy. Unohana Retsu sighed. Unohana sighed and left the 4th Division. She still needed to attend the captain's meeting and help Dustless monitor Aizen Sosuke's movements. Today, the people are really happy. In the sky above Kongzucho, there was a violent distortion in the sky, and a white light appeared. An out-of-tune tune came out from it, and then a figure jumped out. The figure that came out of the crossing gate was Dustless, and his face was full of smiles. After picking Unohana Retsu, his heart was very comfortable and light. It's really not easy to find a person in a sea of people, Dustless said with annoyance. She didn't have a special way to contact Kurosaki. Although I don't want to expose my tracks, there's nothing I can do now. The silent Ryatsu in his body erupted and swept across the entire Kongzucho. In the blink of an eye, it spread like a stormy sea. It attracted a lot of people who were secretly watching. Bastard, releasing Ryatsu in such a big way, he's too arrogant. In an abandoned warehouse, there were sounds of dissatisfaction and indignation. The person who shouted was Ryori, the leader of the Masked Legion. Although they were dissatisfied, the Masquerade Legion wisely chose to remain silent. This abnormal Ryatsu content and density exceeded all of them. If they provoked it, they would definitely be crushed. Kisuk, is it really okay for us to turn a deaf ear to this? In Urahara Kisuk's shop, a black cat could actually speak. Don't worry, it shouldn't be directed at us. Urahara Kisuk drank tea casually, but his eyes were very heavy, and his heart was also stormy. This Ryatsu was so huge that it was beyond his imagination. It reached a level that could easily destroy him. Such a huge spiritual pressure. When did such a person appear in Soul Society? Yi of the Four Maple Courtyard, who had turned into a black cat, said in a cautious and puzzled tone, "This spiritual pressure is very similar to that of the captain who came to grab the Hogyoku last time. By the way, what's the name of that bastard?" Thinking of Dustless, Yi of the Four Maple Courtyard felt his hair standing on end. I think his name is Dustless. A while ago, I heard that he merged with the Hogyoku and killed all the captains in seconds. Even the head captain was not killed by him. In the end, Team Zero was alerted and they joined forces to seal him. Although it felt quite similar to Dustless's Ryatsu, Urahara Kisuk strongly denied it. This Ryatsu can't be his, he has been sealed. At that time, Urahara Kisuk took the opportunity to lurk in Soul Society, and was fortunate enough to witness Dustless's peerless talent. I still remember clearly that Sosuke Aizen, who we regarded as our #1 enemy, was instantly killed by him. Recalling the situation that day, Urahara Kisuk couldn't believe it, and now he felt like he was dreaming. How is that possible? How can a powerful person like Sosuke Aizen be killed in seconds? Today is not April Fool's Day. Even though Yi of the Four Maple Courtyard, who had transformed into a black cat, did not seem to have any emotional changes, her voice, which was raised several times, was clearly stunned. Sosuke Aizen was a nightmare for them. But what did it mean that Dustless killed him in seconds? The two sides were completely different players in the same dimension. He must have used the power of the Hogyoku. Yi of the Four Maple Courtyard affirmed, full of doubts about Urahara Kisuk's words. Yi, do you think I'm joking? I also hope so, but I saw it with my own eyes. Urahara Kisuk sighed, and his eyes changed. If possible, he also hoped that what he experienced that day was a dream. Although he did use the Hogyoku at that time, he didn't completely use the power of the Hogyoku, and he showed invincible power. Urahara Kisuk continued to explain to Yi of the Four Maple Courtyard what had happened that day. Moreover, the most exaggerated thing is that after that guy fused with the Hogyoku, he completely stepped into the realm of God. He didn't even move, but he directly crushed the captains of the Godai 13 with his momentum. He alone killed all the Shinigami except for the captain, and almost all the members of the Soul Society were wiped out. In my opinion, if it wasn't for the Zero Squad, the captain might not have survived. Urahara Kisuk said seriously, and looked cautious, for fear that Yi of the Four Maple Courtyard would think that he was joking. Then why didn't the Zero Squad kill him? That kind of person is a scourge. It's better to kill him once and for all. Thinking of Dustless's cheap smile, Yi of the Four Maple Courtyard's Yi's face showed blue veins. I don't know, maybe because of some scruples, or maybe because they didn't have the ability to kill him. Urahara Kisuk also couldn't figure out the Zero Squad's intention. Fortunately, that guy was sealed. Yi of the Four Maple Courtyard was also relieved that they survived the disaster. After all, they offended Dustless, and they provoked an enemy who was dozens of times stronger than Sosuke Aizen. It was too terrifying. After a while, Dustless, who was floating in the sky, noticed that many shadows were coming, and his face suddenly became cold. The person I wanted to see didn't come, but you guys came. Chapter 1099. Looking helplessly at the figure floating in the sky, Dustless cursed his bad luck. Who are you? Idiot, do you even need to ask? He came out of the portal, so he must be a Grim Reaper. This guy looks unfamiliar. Is he a Grim Reaper sent by the Soul Society to the modern world to support us? Impossible. If that's the case, someone will definitely warn us. You have to understand that attacking without permission is a big problem. The Grim Reapers who were galloping over discussed animatedly. They were rather curious about Dustless who had appeared out of nowhere. All of them looked at him like curious babies. It doesn't matter if you don't know who I am. Anyway, you're going to die soon. Dustless glanced at them uninterestedly. His eyes began to change strangely, revealing a pair of strange eyes in the shape of a five-pointed star. Amaterasu. Irregular black flames flashed in his eyes. The moment his voice fell, screams sounded. Damn it! What the hell is this? I can't even put it out. It hurts. The Grim Reapers roared in pain in groups. They were roasted by the Amaterasu's bloodthirsty flames, and some of them couldn't bear it and directly killed themselves. The silent fluctuation of spiritual particles attracted Dustless's attention. He looked to the north and saw a few strange figures. It's them? Dustless's eyes widened in surprise. A few familiar faces appeared in his eyes. Thousands of photons swept across his body and disappeared into the clear sky. Dustless couldn't be bothered to care about these Grim Reapers. They had already been swallowed by the Amaterasu, so he left them to fend for themselves. Anyway, their fates were already set. Ever since Candace and Bambietta were exposed, they had been hunted down endlessly. After all, the two of them knew too much. It was related to Habakkuk's secret, so Jugram had been sending people to hunt them down. Bastard, Tsongdu, don't be too complacent. Candace and Bambietta, who had been forced into a difficult situation, cursed at the same time. Their powers had been taken away, and their strength had now dropped to the level of vice-captains. The middle-aged Quincy called Tsongdu was a member of the Sternritter Order. His ability was steel, codenamed I. He could turn any part of his body into steel. You guys actually betrayed His Majesty. I heard from Jugram that you have sided with the Death God, Tsongdu said with a cold expression. His words were filled with killing intent. Most of the people in Wandless Empire were loyal to Yawatch to the death. They revered him as if he was a god and would not tolerate any blasphemy. Your Majesty? He's just a shameless villain. Candace, who had a straightforward temperament, snorted disdainfully. She used to be like Tsongdu, but after following Dustless, she had undergone earth-shaking changes. That's right. That despicable bastard used us. Once he thought we were worthless, he would not hesitate to abandon us and kill us. That kind of person is not worthy of my loyalty. Bambietta replied in a disgusted tone. Her tone revealed her determination to die. It seems the two of you have been brainwashed by that death god. Tsongdu frowned and said, If that's the case, then goodbye. Your abilities have been extracted by Jugram. You have no chance of winning against me now. Songdu waved his hand and condensed a large holy bow. He pointed it at Candace and Bambietta coldly and said, "Seeing that you both once worked for His Majesty, I will leave your corpses intact." Whoosh whoosh whoosh. After saying that, thousands of sharp arrows shot over. They could easily penetrate the steel skin of a great void, let alone Candace and Bambietta, whose strength had been reduced to that of a vice-captain. The two girls had little awareness and closed their eyes. If there was one regret, it would be that they could not kill Yawach with their own hands. 10,000 manifestations, heavens beckoning. A soft voice sounded, and the sharp arrows suddenly changed their trajectories. They actually took a detour around the spiritual drop swords that were shooting toward the two girls. They all strangely shot into the sky. No matter what, the two of them are still my allies. They also provided me with a lot of information. If you kill them right in front of me, where will I put my face? Dustless glanced at Songdu calmly as he descended from the sky. You are not dead? Candace and Bambietta were surprised and looked at Dustless in shock. To be able to survive being surrounded by the entire Soul Society, even the current leader of Wandless Empire, Jugram, might not be able to do so. Not dead. Hearing this, Dustless's face darkened. He looked at the two girls speechlessly. It sounded like they wanted him to die quickly. Who are you? If you don't want to die, then get out of my way. No, since you have seen me, you must die, just like those people. Songdu coldly pointed at the two sides of the road. There were corpses everywhere, all of which were caused by him. Most of them were normal humans who had nothing to do with him, but they were still killed by him. Those who had seen the true face of Wandless Empire must die. Looks like we have the same idea. Dustless's cold face relaxed and revealed a smile. He laughed coldly and said, "Just like you said, you must die when you see me." Hearing this, Songdu was so angry that he laughed. Suddenly, a majestic spiritual pressure erupted and turned into a majestic aura that pounced on Dustless. He thought that Dustless would be directly pressed down, but who would have thought that with a contemptuous smile, he would end Songdu's life in an instant. Tao Breakers 90. Black Coffin. Countless cold black lights attacked, and Songdu, who did not feel anything, was directly surrounded. The merciless black lights tore him apart. Candace and Bambietta almost suffocated. Songdu was a true captain, but he was so worthless. He did not even have the chance to resist and was directly penetrated by the black coffin. Chapter 1100. Stills and Bambietta widened their eyes. They finally understood the fundamental reason why Dustless was able to break through from Soul Society. This overwhelming strength was enough to instantly kill a captain-level expert. No matter where he was, he could rest easy. Soul Society, Hueco Mundo, and even Wandless Empire. There were only a handful of people in Wandless Empire who could kill a captain-level Grim Reaper with a wave of his hand. Still breathing? Your skin is quite thick. Even though he was riddled with holes, Songdu was surprisingly strong. He stood tall and stared coldly at Dustless. His bone-chilling gaze seemed to want to tear Dustless into pieces. His Majesty gave me the holy word ability of steel. Of course, I won't be killed by you so easily, Songdu said stubbornly as his body shook. You have a sharp tongue. Yawach would be laughing in the underworld if he had such a loyal subordinate like you. Hearing this, Candace said with disdain. Her words were full of mockery. Bambietta nodded in agreement. She looked at Dustless with eyes full of gratitude and obedience. If it weren't for Dustless, the two of them would have died. Humph. Songdu snorted and ignored Candace and Bambietta. He stared coldly at Dustless. Protecting the two of them means certain death. Going against the Wandless Empire is the same as digging your own grave. Songdu roared in a heart-wrenching manner. His angry voice lingered in the sky. Dustless turned a deaf ear to it. He stared at Songdu with pure pity and ridicule. These Quincy were all loyal to Yawach, but their fates were tragic. They were either killed by the Grim Reaper or executed by Yawach. The luckier ones ended up as nourishment for the saint. Therefore they were destined to be tragic. You still have the strength to fight back. Sensing several sharp auras locking onto him, Dustless couldn't help but frown. He saw Songdu condense a blue spirit bow in his hand again. "You're courting death." With a stern expression, Dustless's spiritual pressure surged again. Just as he was about to completely destroy Songdu, a dazzling beam of light suddenly fell from the sky. The blazing light was so bright that it was impossible to open one's eyes. It covered Songdu. "This is the thing that took away my and Bambietta's power," Candace exclaimed in shock. Her heart was filled with fear and hatred at the same time. It was this inexplicable thing that had snatched away the fruits of their hundreds of years of cultivation. "This can't be the saint, right?" Sensing the ancient and vicissitudes of life within the light pillar, Dustless muttered. "And Jazz Dustless." But when Yawatch fell asleep too, his power and Dustless. His power would two's power would power power and's power wood's power wood's power. After the exchange, Jugram would be able to obtain Yawatch's abilities. Even when Yawatch attacked Soul Society, he fell into a deep sleep and exchanged his power with Dustless. Because of this, Dustless temporarily gained the ability of omniscience and omnipotence. Maybe Dustless activated the saint. Dustless speculated. Although the hope was slim, it wasn't zero. "Ah! Damn it, what's going on? Why is my power gradually disappearing?" Songdu, who was covered by the beam of light, screamed miserably. His painful and helpless voice came out of his mouth. He was surprised to find that his power was being absorbed by some mysterious beam of light. Not only that, his life force was also rapidly disappearing. "Although I don't know what's going on, this should be the saint." Looking at Songdu, who was in great pain, Dustless was certain. Dustless's hopeful eyes were filled with envy. He was very envious of Yawatch's abnormal and heaven-defying abilities. Just the saint alone was extremely heaven-defying. It gave its blood to others. After the person who drank the host's blood died, everything would be given to Yawatch. The host's power, soul, and even memories would all belong to Yawatch. There was no need for any cultivation. All they needed to do was wait for the final reward. Ungrateful, despicable person. Why are you doing this to me? I didn't betray my subordinates. Songdu roared miserably at the sky when he felt his limbs melting and his consciousness fading away. The tragic thing was that everyone ignored him and ignored him. Such a small pawn would always be a pawn. Or rather, the stern cross knights were just pawns. The only ones who could barely be considered as Yawatch's subordinates were his personal guards and Justless. After a while, Songdu's screams finally stopped. He disappeared with the wind, not even leaving behind a corpse. He was valiantly turned into ashes. "Sir, Candace and I swear to follow you until death. Together, we will suppress that evil Yawatch." At this moment, Bambietta and Candace knelt on one knee at the same time to show their loyalty. Their sonorous voices were filled with no regrets. They were determined to follow Dustless. Gulp. Due to the fact that both of them were kneeling on one knee, their heads were lowered quite a bit. Wu Chen could see the soul-stirring cleavage, which made him embarrassed. "Get up first." Dustless was stunned for a moment before he understood their loyalty. Candace and Bambietta could only rely on him because no one in this world was willing to take them in. Whether it was the Grim Reaper, the Great Void, or Quincy, none of them would take them in. Therefore, they had no other choice but to completely follow Dustless. Otherwise, what awaited the two of them was only death. Jugram would definitely send out Quincy to hunt them down. Only by relying on the stronger Dustless could they have a chance of survival. These two are smart. They know how to use my strength. Chapter 1101. Candace and Bambietta looked at each other and were secretly delighted. If Dustless refused to take them in, they would have no choice but to face the powerful Quincy. However, as soon as they took a step forward, they saw Dustless staring at them like a wolf. "Bastard, where are you looking at?" The hot-tempered Candace was the first to speak. She pointed at Dustless and said angrily, "Remember, being your subordinate doesn't mean selling my body to you. Take back your vulgar gaze." Following Dustless's line of sight, Dustless's eyes were fixed on Candace's collar. "Humph. Bambietta is your maid. That's your bet, not mine. If you want to look at her." Candace rolled her eyes and said arrogantly. Wu Chen's face was full of awkwardness. It was not a glorious thing to be caught peeping. However, looking at Candace's overbearing appearance, he was also very unhappy. He immediately teased. "You may not understand, but my subordinates must be omnipotent. They can kill enemies, love, fly in the sky, and swim in the sea. They must also solve their master's problems. Of course, they must also be good in a certain aspect." Hearing his words, Wu Chen's face was full of ridicule. His smiling face was very happy to see Candace suffer a setback. However, to everyone's surprise, although she was dissatisfied, she still clenched her teeth and didn't dare to lose her temper. "Forget it, there's no need to care about those trivial matters. It's all a joke. Let's go." Dustless turned around and walked away. The two women followed Yawacha's stern-crossed knights. The idea of the strong being respected was deeply ingrained in them. The words of the person with the bigger fist represented everything. They wouldn't resist Dustless's words and would only submit. Perhaps they really believed him now. "You have to take responsibility if you look at others." Bambietta, who suddenly fell silent, muttered, "Don't think that you'll be fine just because you're the one we're loyal to. You looked at Candace's breasts 15 times, her thighs 7 times, and my breasts 20 times. Hearing that, the corner of Dustless's mouth twitched, and he almost fell to the ground directly. "What do you want me to do?" Dustless wiped the sweat off his temples and turned his head. "If you want me to help you recover your strength or regain the ability of Holy Script, then forget it. I can't do that." His words sent the two girls to hell. Candace's and Bambietta's eyes dimmed. "As long as you help us kill Yawach, we're willing to be your slaves. We're even willing to do those wretched things you're thinking of." Glancing at each other, Candace and Bambietta said fiercely. Their hatred for Yawach was as deep as the ocean. The power that they had spent hundreds of years to gain was all taken away by that so-called saint. Their hatred for Wandless Empire had also reached an unprecedented level. They were willing to give up everything to kill Yawach. Obscene things. Don't make it sound so unpleasant. It's human nature to indulge in food and sex, Dustless said softly as he glanced indifferently at Candace and Bambietta. The ability of Holy Script was unique to Yawach, and Dustless couldn't do anything about it. Speaking of Yawach, Dustless sneered and said coldly, "But killing Yawach is inevitable. There can't be 2 suns in the sky, and there can't be 2 kings. He's still far from being able to ride on my head. His Majesty is very strong. I heard that his Holy Script ability is omniscience and omnipotence." Thinking of Yawach, Candace and Bambietta's faces turned serious. This nightmarish, cold and cruel character was pressing down on the two of them so hard that they couldn't breathe. Omniscience and omnipotence? Hearing this, Dustless couldn't help but feel a headache. Omniscience and omnipotence was indeed heaven-defying. It was more powerful than all the moves he currently had. Even the moves that Yawach saw through could not do any real damage to him. After looking at each other, Candace and Bambietta said in unison, "I think Jugram used it before." Just as I thought. Dustless's eyes flashed with realization. He had a new understanding of how difficult it was to deal with Jugram. However, this also meant that it was Jugram who had just left. He had forcibly extracted the power of Tsongdu. However, Busby, who I killed in the past, might have been resurrected by Jugram. Dustless thought to himself. Only then would Jugram know that the two women had betrayed him. Because Busby had witnessed everything, it was normal for him to tell Jugram everything after he was revived. Even though Busby hated Yawach because Yawach destroyed Busby's hometown, he was sincere to Jugram. Jugram and Busby had a very good relationship. Dustless even remembered that the two had known each other since they were young. It was normal for Jugram to resurrect Busby. After a while, Dustless suddenly said, "You two are lucky that only your power was extracted." "I think you're gloating." Candace curled her lips and said disdainfully, "You can only do such despicable things because our power was extracted. Don't think that we don't know anything. This is called looting a burning house." "Ridiculous." Dustless snorted and said, "With your strength, if I really wanted to do that kind of thing, do you really think you could resist me?" Hearing this, Candace and Bambietta were both stunned and speechless. They only fell silent when they thought of Dustless's achievements. He had single-handedly wiped out all the death gods. He definitely had the strength to crush them. Losing the ability of Holy Script. also means that the two of you have nothing to do with Yawatch in the future. Even if he leaves again, the two of you have escaped the curse. The guillotine that has been hanging over your heads has disappeared. This is a blessing in disguise. Chapter 1102. Candace and Bambietta nodded in agreement. Although it was a pity to lose the ability to read the Holy Script, it also meant that they had completely lost their relationship with Yawatch, which was a blessing in disguise. Songdu is the best example, Dustless reminded them. Indeed. Candace and Bambietta shuddered at the thought of Songdu's miserable appearance. The cruel method of being drained dry and not even leaving a bone behind really shocked them. They immediately rejoiced. They could start over if they lost their strength, but if they lost their lives, they would never be able to return. Time flew by, and in the blink of an eye, 10 days had passed. Dustless, Candace, and Bambietta also temporarily settled down in the modern world. During this time, Dustless had been tracking Shinji Kurosaki's whereabouts, but there was no trace of him. However, although they did not find any clues about Shinji Kurosaki, they did find a big shot. You found Isshin Shiba? And he's with a female Quincy called Shinji Kurosaki? Are you kidding me? Dustless looked at Candace and Bambietta, who were sitting on the sofa, in shock. He suddenly felt that his brain was not big enough, and the world was spinning like a paste. He had lost the most basic ability to think. Yes, her name is Shinozaki Makoto. She's just a cameo and won't appear in the future. After all, the main character stole Shinozaki Makoto. I think she's the biological sister of Shinozaki Makoto. She's also a pure-blood Quincy. Candace explained while sipping her drink. She had fallen in love with many things in the past few days in the modern world, but most of the time, she got it through robbery. Shinji Kurosaki? Dustless was speechless. He had never thought that there would be such a person. Moreover, she was also a pure-blood Quincy, and even Shinji Kurosaki's sister. The worst thing was that after Isshin Shiba lost his power, he was besieged by a greater void and almost lost his life. However, Shinji Kurosaki saved him and they fell in love at first sight. In the end, she became pregnant with Isshin Shiba's child. And just in case, Isshin changed his surname to Shinozaki Isshin. His child was also named Shinozaki Ichigo. A pure-blooded Quincy actually married a death god, and a powerless one at that. Bambietta's expression was strange. She could not describe her feelings. If it was in the past, she would definitely be very angry, thinking that this was trampling on the purebred Quincy bloodline. But now, she didn't feel anything. Instead, she was very happy. Forget it, that's not important. Haven't you found any traces of Kurosaki yet? After shaking his head, Dustless stopped thinking about it. He also turned a deaf ear to Shinozaki Ichigo. Shinozaki Ichigo was too weak. Whether it was him in the future or now, he was just an ant to Dustless. There's no trace of her. She dropped out of the school she used to go to. I don't know where she is now. Candace and Bambietta didn't know either. They were obviously curious about this Quincy, who possessed both the power of a greater void and the power of the Grim Reaper. For Quincy, the void was a deadly poison that could not be touched. Well, finally touched the Hogyoku. Suddenly, a wisp of brilliance flashed across his eyes. Dustless said in pleasant surprise. Aizen didn't have any contact with the Hogyoku since he got it. Just now, Dustless, who was disguised as the Hogyoku's consciousness, felt the fluctuation of Aizen's spiritual pressure. Is this the Hogyoku's world? There's a space inside. It's amazing. Inside the Hogyoku's world, Aizen looked at the boundless purple air and muttered to himself. Welcome to the world inside the Hogyoku. I am its consciousness. A ripple appeared in the sky, and a cold voice suddenly spread. It's still conscious? Aizen Sosuke exclaimed in surprise. At the same time, his face turned gloomy as he unsheathed his Kyoka Suigetsu. You are my only host. My power is your power. After that, the Hogyoku's power was transferred to Aizen's body. Boom boom boom. A vast and majestic spiritual pressure broke out of his body. It was even stronger than Dustless's. No wonder that guy can get the strength to crush everything. With such a huge amount of spiritual pressure, I can do it too. Feeling the spiritual pressure in his body, Aizen couldn't help but feel excited. At the same time, He was surprised to find a special power condensing in his left shoulder. His left arm, which was destroyed by Dustless, seemed to be growing back. Aizen, who was suspicious by nature, immediately dispelled his doubts and felt grateful to the Hogyoku's consciousness. There's no need to help me grow my arm now. Aizen shook his head. A broken arm growing back would be suspicious. The Hogyoku's consciousness was also very smart and immediately stopped emitting spiritual pressure. I thought it was a substance that could break the boundary between Hollow and Shinigami. I didn't expect it to have a consciousness. Aizen sighed. At the same time, his vigilance disappeared. The endless spiritual pressure just now wasn't a lie. He believed the Hogyoku's consciousness. Incredible? Wait until you know I'm the Hogyoku's consciousness. You'll be shocked. Dustless, who was disguised as the Hogyoku's consciousness, sneered. He immediately began to trick Aizen, using this special identity to provoke him and Jugram to kill each other. Chapter 1103. Dustless, who was disguised as Hogyoku's consciousness, sneered again and again. He was extremely disgusted with Aizen Sosuke, especially after he joined forces with Jugram. Using you and Jugram to kill each other is exactly what I want. Dustless sneered. Suddenly, he thought of a plan and said, the Hogyoku can evolve infinitely. It can help the host break through the boundary between Shinigami and Hollow and reach a new realm. Hearing this, Aizen was stunned, and immediately said with enthusiasm, evolve? That's right, that guy has taken on several different forms. Thinking of Dustless, Aizen's eyes were filled with passion. Every time Dustless changed a form, his Ryatsu would increase dramatically. His speed, body hardness, and even his momentum would increase exponentially. No, 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 Dustless's Hogyoku consciousness said 3 times in a row and denied. The evolution you saw is incomplete. The evolution of creatures can't be as rough as him. In fact, it still needs a kind of power to evolve perfectly. Dustless's Hogyoku consciousness raised his voice and said, it also needs to add a lot of Quincy's soul to reach a higher realm and finally touch the level of God. Quincy? What does the matter between Shinigami and Hollow have to do with them? Sosuke Aizen wasn't an idiot. His tone was full of doubt as he said, Quincy doesn't seem to be special. Hearing this, Dustless felt a headache coming on. It wasn't easy to fool Aizen Sosuke. Any flaws would be discovered by him. After sorting out his thoughts, the disguised Hogyoku consciousness said, the ancestor of Quincy Yawatch is actually inextricably linked to the Grim Reaper. In a sense, the Spirit King is Yawatch. So, by combining the power of 3, we can break through the final boundary. Yawatch? That makes sense. Aizen Sosuke agreed. Then he suddenly realized something and asked, how can you, a Hogyoku's consciousness, know about Yawatch and Quincy? This is one of my abilities. I can read a person's mind. This is the information I got from the previous host, Dustless, who was killed. Dustless's Hogyoku consciousness knew Aizen would ask this, so he said indifferently, and your subordinate, Captain Ikamaru Jin, don't look at his loyalty on the surface. In fact, he is two-faced and often wants to take your life. At the critical moment, Dustless sold Ikamaru Jin without any moral integrity. You can really read a person's mind. Aizen's suspicion disappeared without a trace, because he knew that Ikamaru Jin deliberately approached him, and when he found a chance in the future, he would kill him. But only Sosuke Aizen knew about this secret. Now that Hogyoku's consciousness knew about it, it meant what he said was true. This means that the Hogyoku consciousness can really read a person's mind. Idiot. You want to fight with me? This is the blessing of a transmigrator, foreseeing the future. Dustless, who was disguised as Hogyoku's consciousness, sneered again and again. If Sosuke Aizen still had doubts before, he now believed in Dustless's Hogyoku. We need more and more Quincy's soul. Currently, Wandless Empire's Stern-Cross Knights are the most suitable. Each of them has Yawatch's power. Dustless's Hogyoku consciousness continued. If we want to reach an unprecedented limit, we have to merge Quincy's soul into Hogyoku. Then I can provide more power to the host. Jugram. Sosuke Aizen was obviously tempted, his eyes flashing with uncertainty. However, he still had a cooperative relationship with Wandenrake. There's no need to rush this, let's wait for a while. After taking a deep breath to calm himself down, Aizen regained his wisdom and said, "There's still a long way to go. It's not too late to test this out first. This guy is really hard to deal with." Dustless's Hogyoku consciousness was confused. Test? There's no one to test this on. There's no one with Quincy's power, Hollow's power, and Shinigami's power at the same time. Dustless's Hogyoku consciousness suddenly remembered Shinozaki Ichigo. Because Dustless didn't save him, Isshin Shiba was turned into a Hollow. As his son, Ichigo Shinozaki must have inherited the power of Hollow and Shinigami. As for Quincy's power, it came from his mother. Captain Shiba is married to a Quincy, and they have a child. Let's use him as a test subject. Sosuke Aizen's eyes lit up. But, Aizen continued, Shinozaki Ichigo was just born. When he grows up, I'll send someone to awaken him. That's up to you. Dustless's Hogyoku consciousness opened his mouth, but he didn't say anything in the end. He originally wanted Jugram's quencher, but who would have thought that the trouble would be shifted to Shinozaki Ichigo? But we can't let Jugram's Quincy go either. Aizen Sosuke's body was covered in an ominous glint, his eyes filled with killing intent. Jugram had once threatened him, and Sosuke Aizen would never let him off, be it in public or private. Now's not the time. I still need time to prepare. Aizen suddenly said. That's not up to you. Dustless said disdainfully. Aizen was just a pawn. He didn't have the right to choose. Chapter 1104. Aizen Sosuke was very excited. If what Hogyoku said was true, then his day of becoming a god was just around the corner. When that time comes, he will be able to climb to a higher level than Dustless. I really regret killing him. Sosuke Aizen suddenly said. His tone was full of regret. Regret killing him? Hearing this, Dustless disguised as Hogyoku's consciousness asked directly. Is it that Captain Dustless? Of course it's him. Aizen Sosuke said disappointedly. Using his failure as a foil to my greatness, what a perfect play. Too bad that guy was killed by Silver. Sigh. What a self-righteous idiot. Dustless disguised as Hogyoku's consciousness disdained Aizen Sosuke and slandered him in his mind. If you know I'm still alive, you'll be scared half to death. Konzucho. After failing to bewitch Aizen Sosuke, Dustless began to think of other countermeasures. If I knew this would happen, I wouldn't have let that kid die in such a hurry. Dustless sighed while lying on the sofa. The him he was talking about was Tsongdu. Dustless's room was very luxurious, decorated with all kinds of luxurious furniture. The ceiling was made of crystal, and it was very dazzling. Of course, Dustless didn't have the money to buy these things. Bambietta and Candace robbed him. What's there to worry about? Just go to Wandless Empire. Candace sat next to Dustless and encouraged him. A seductive body fragrance drifted into Wu Chen's nose. Wu Chen glanced at the scantily dressed Candace. She just wore a pair of panties and a bra casually, and her body was still wet. Apparently, she had just climbed out of the swimming pool. Naturally, the swimming pool was also robbed. Even this villa was robbed. Now go and kill Wandless Empire, and we'll be yours. You can do whatever you want with us. Bambietta also approached Dustless. Both of them were wearing swimsuits, and their curvaceous bodies were exposed to Dustless. Even Candace, who was the most courageous among them, took the initiative to provoke Dustless. She deliberately blew hot air into his ear and lowered her chest, exposing her dazzling cleavage. Save it. If I am so easily seduced, I would have died decades ago. Dustless said disdainfully, but his eyes couldn't help but take a few more glances at Candace's chest. He would be a bastard if he didn't take advantage of her. Humph. Coward. Candace said discontentedly. She then twirled her beautiful green hair and said, I really don't know what you're worried about. Scruples? Of course not. It's just that I don't like to waste my energy. Even if I kill them, it won't solve the root of the problem. After Yawatch revives, I can use Saint to revive those Quinistas at any time. All in all, killing them would be useless. It wouldn't do anything. Yu Chen stretched and said tiredly, besides, even if we really want to take care of Wandenrake, we can just use that little pawn, Sosuke Aizen. Huff! A sense of weariness penetrated deep into his bone marrow. When Wu Chen was planning to sleep, a burst of violent tremors made his sleepiness disappear. Boom boom boom. A huge ripple spread out, and then a huge wave exploded. The swimming pool that Candace and Bambietta used to play in was instantly blown into ruins. This abnormal spiritual pressure. It doesn't feel like the Grim Reaper, nor a void. Are they Quinistas again? There's no end to this. Wu Chen's eyes turned cold as he sneered. Bastard, my swimming pool. Candace and Bambietta roared at the same time and shot out like cannonballs, directly pouncing on the figure standing in the sky. How dare they attack so openly? It seems that the connection between Soul Society and the modern world has been cut off. But this is good. Dustless walked out with a cold smile. Are you kidding me? I'm His Majesty's greatest masterpiece, and I have to take care of these small fries. The figure in the sky looked down at the ruins and complained with dissatisfaction, as if he had been greatly insulted. His face was full of resentment. This person had dark skin, and his left eye, which was always closed, was covered with a black crosshair mark. He wore white gloves with an X embroidered on them, a sleeveless shirt, and a fur shoulder armor on the right side of the shirt. He wore a two-horned hat made of white fur, with a small symbol of Wandenrake on each side of the hat. The most striking thing was that he was holding a cross-shaped gun in his hand, which was obviously his weapon. Lige Barrow. After seeing the newcomer clearly, Candace and Bambietta were both startled, fear flashing in their eyes. The man with the gun in front of them was not as simple as Quinistas. He was one of Yawacha's personal guards, and the captain of the guards. Known as the man closest to God, he was Yawacha's most perfect creation. Kill yourselves. Before your power was extracted, you were ants to me. Now that your power has been extracted, you are not even ants, Lige Barrow said disdainfully. You are the one who should kill yourself. A ray of light descended from the sky, enveloping Lige Barrow entirely. A powerful force exploded out from him. Get down! As soon as he finished speaking, the light became several times stronger, and directly suppressed Lige Barrow, who fell to the ground with severe burns all over his body. I'll make you into one of the 6 paths of pain to sneak attack Sosuke Aizen and provoke you to kill each other. Dustless walked up to Lige Barrow and smiled coldly. Chapter 1105. Yawacha's personal guards were all extremely powerful. They could take on Team Zero by themselves, and they could even wipe them out. Of course, strength was not the most important factor because there were many powerful people in this world. Stepping on Lige Barrow's burnt body, he laughed and said, one of Yawacha's personal guards is the left arm of the Spirit King, and the other is the heart of the Spirit King. You little black bastard. You must be a part of the Spirit King's body, right? Candace and Bambietta couldn't help but burst out laughing, not caring about their image at all. Yawacha's personal guards had a very high status in Wandless Empire. Now that Lige Barrow, the captain of the personal guards, was mocked by Dustless as a little black bastard, his lungs were probably about to explode. I dare you to say that again. As expected, Lige Barrow flew into a rage and roared with a ferocious face. How dare you talk to the messenger of God like that? Who gave you the confidence to do that? Do you believe that I... Woo-woo. Before he could finish his sentence, Dustless's smelly foot had mercilessly blocked his mouth. I will definitely kill you. Lige Barrow's face turned red as he roared towards the sky. His voice was trembling. His eyes were red, and he wanted to tear Dustless into pieces. In Wandless Empire, Yawacha's personal guards were all favored by the heavens, and they had received special care. Other than Jugram, everyone else was extremely respectful towards them. Now, Dustless actually stepped on his mouth with the sole of his smelly shoe. How dare he? Lige Barrow's self-esteem was severely damaged. His dignity was also being challenged. You should not be at the peak of strength yet, right? To be honest, killing a bug like you does not give me any sense of accomplishment. However, I like to teach those arrogant fellows a lesson, especially people like you. Dustless said coldly as he spat out cold air that could freeze living things. You are the arrogant one. Lige Barrow roared towards the sky. Spiritual droplets that had materialized erupted from his body, and they were covered with many patterns. At first glance, it looked extremely mysterious. External blood stasis equipment. With that order, the special circle covered with many patterns spread out rapidly, swallowing Dustless's entire body in almost an instant. He didn't even have time to react. Li Jiabero also took this opportunity to escape from Dustless's smelly soles. Tui tui tui. Unlucky. Hurriedly spitting out the dust in his mouth, Li Jiabero was so depressed that he wanted to vomit blood. A single slip would cause everlasting sorrow. He had been careless for a moment and had eaten a broken shoe sole. All of you must die. Looking around, Li Jiabero said fiercely. His eyes were fixed on Candace and Bambietta, and a blood-red mist floated out from behind him. They were all formed by his killing intent. Idiot. You want to kill me with this shampoo? Seeing that Li Jiabero was ignoring his existence, Dustless had no choice but to stand out and make his presence known. Li Jiabero turned his head around as if he had seen a ghost. When he saw Dustless's expressionless face and his unchanging black eyes, he was so shocked that his jaw almost dislocated. The external blood stasis equipment's ferocious spiritual pressure was circulating around Dustless's body. The terrifyingly high temperature of several million degrees Celsius was circulating around Dustless's body. However, Dustless was completely unscathed. What made Li Jiabero want to vomit blood the most was that Dustless actually said that the external blood stasis equipment was a shampoo. However, based on the current situation, it was indeed a shampoo. Not only did Dustless not feel any discomfort, he was even humming a tune that made Li Jiabero feel nauseous. You forced me to do this. I didn't want to use that at first, but since you want to be disemboweled, I'll fulfill your wish. Li Jiabero said cruelly. He raised his strangely shaped cross spear and aimed it at Dustless's head. You really don't know etiquette. Do you know what it means to return the favor? With such an unruly subordinate, Yawatch must be an ignorant old man. With a faint luster all over his body, Dustless approached Li Jiabero in an instant, and the edge of destruction appeared in his hand. Armament hockey hardening. The black iron fist mercilessly blasted towards Li Jiabero's face. Ka ka ka. A crisp sound of bones breaking was heard. Under a heavy blow, Li Jiabero was blown away by Dustless. His whole face was directly sunken. As for his nose, he no longer had such an organ. I'll tear you to pieces. Li Jiabero screamed in pain and cursed in anger. He was shocked and angry. He touched his face in disbelief. His bones were creaking, and his whole body was exuding the power of destruction. The cross spear was aimed at Dustless's chest without hesitation. Be careful. His ability is universal connection. Don't get hit by him, or the consequences will be unimaginable. Candace and Bambietta both urged anxiously. Li Jiabero sneered, and all the power that he had accumulated for a long time erupted. Bang! A huge beam of light flew towards Dustless at an extremely fast speed. Almost at the moment when the spear was shot, Dustless was penetrated, and he didn't even have a chance to react. He didn't even have time to run. This is the price of angering me. Li Jiabero's face bloomed with a cold smile, and he turned the spear to aim at Candace and Bambietta. Dustless, who was supposed to be dead, emitted a strange energy fluctuation. Seeing such a strange scene, Li Jiabero was directly petrified. Looking at Dustless, who came back from the dead in the blink of an eye, he suddenly felt that his whole body was fixed. This ability, how can ordinary people have it? Chapter 1106. Dustless's shattered body was reconstructed and restored to its original state without any injuries. His skin was shining, no different from the skin of a beautiful girl. Staring at the crazy Rita Barrow as if nothing had happened, Dustless immediately labeled him as a retard. You mean the ability of super regeneration? Yawatch doesn't have it, so he's a rookie. He doesn't even have such an ordinary ability. Rita Barrow, who worshipped Yawatch, was so angry that his face turned red. He raised his hand and shot out a dense number of sharp arrows. Great sage bow. The thick arrows whistled through the air. They were aimed at Dustless's eyes, heart, limbs, and the rest of the arrows were aimed at his soft abdomen. Divine might! The moment the arrows touched Dustless's body, a ripple appeared in the void and quickly twisted, forming a huge vortex. The arrows didn't even touch Dustless's clothes and went into the vortex. It was like a stone falling into the sea, without splashing any waves. I heard that your ability is to connect all things. Regardless of whether there is something blocking you, you can pierce through the target you aim at. Now it seems that your ability is useless against me. Dustless laughed. His voice was quiet and clear. It was very pleasant in the eyes of Candace and Bambietta, but it was deadly in the ears of Rita Barrow. What was a battle? Not to mention other factors, at least it needed to touch someone's body. Now it was simply shameless. Amaterasu. Black flames floated in his hand. Unlike before, Dustless didn't release Amaterasu this time. Instead, he directly used Karmic Earth to compress it into a big black sword. Anyone who was cut by Amaterasu would be burned by Amaterasu. Heavenly Hand Power. Dustless's eyes widened, and he disappeared without even noticing the trajectory of his movement. Witnessing such an unimaginable scene from Dustless, Wuxia Barrow was speechless. Just at this moment, he suddenly felt a fatal attack coming from behind. In such a short time and at such a close distance, he had no time to defend or retreat. Without any hesitation, he opened his left eye that had a special symbol drawn on it. So, the black sword that was about to cut Wuxia Barrow in half penetrated his body. However, the next scene made Wu Chen stunned. This guy. What a mysterious ability. Amaterasu's compressed greatsword pierced through Wuxia Barrow, but he was unharmed. This ability was very similar to Obito's Kamui, which made him immune to all physical attacks. Moreover, he didn't have as many restrictions as Obito. As long as he opened his eyes, no physical attack in the world would be effective against him. This is the holy script ability that Yawatch gave you. No wonder you obey him so much, Dustless said in surprise as he put away the black sword that was compressed by Amaterasu. Wuxia Barrow was no different from an invisible person. Physical attacks were ineffective against him. In Wandless Empire, my codename is X, and my ability is Universal Connection. I am His Majesty's most outstanding work, and the person closest to God. Wuxia Barrow said arrogantly. Don't think that you are the only one who can be immune to physical attacks. I am no exception. When I open my left eye, my Universal Connection ability will come into play. Before this, I was just playing house with you. Candace and Bambietta frowned as they heard this. Their hearts were in their throats. This was what made Wuxia Barrow so powerful. He had invincible strength and invincible ability. Only such a person could be Yawatch's personal guard, and Wuxia Barrow was the captain of the personal guard. This was enough to show how powerful and extraordinary he was. Is that so? Hearing this, Wu Chen was neither sad nor happy. Only his eyes began to change. Being immune to physical attacks is praiseworthy, but are you immune to illusions? I am an all-rounder. With a sneer, Dustless's eternal Mangekyo Sharingan shot out a demonic luster, making people not dare to look at it directly. Just a glance would cause people to be immersed in it, and their soul and thoughts would be completely devoured. Boom! The moment the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan appeared, Wuxia Barrow's physical attack immunity that he was so proud of immediately lost its effect, and he fell to the ground. Universal Connection could pass through any attack, but it could not defend against illusions that had no substance. How does this feel? In Tsukuyami World, Dustless was holding a blade, and there were countless shadow clones around him. Without exception, all of them looked the same as Dustless, and almost all of them had blades in their hands. Gulp! Wuxia Barrow looked up at the sky. The whole world was extremely oppressive, and there were only countless Dustless in front of him. What is this situation? How could this happen? Calm down, I am invincible. No one can hurt me. He must have used some kind of demonic technique to make me fall into a trance, causing this illusion to appear in my mind. Wuxia Barrow looked at Dustless, who was strolling over, and tried his best to remain calm. Very smart. This is indeed an illusion. Dustless admitted. However, Tsukuyami World's exaggerated illusion is extraordinary, and it can be said to be invincible. Especially for people like you who have weak mental defense, it is even more invincible. Moreover, the torture of the illusion world on you will be transferred to reality. With an evil smile on his face, Dustless at this time was particularly gloomy and terrifying, at least in Wuxia Barrow's eyes. Even the evil spirits in hell were not as bad as him. He was simply the incarnation of the devil. Do you know what will happen if countless shadow clones stab you? Aren't you the messenger of God? Then you should be very resistant to beatings, right? Chapter 1107. Looking at the endless crowd of people walking towards him, it was as if they could topple the mountains and overturn the seas. Gulp! Li Jiebaro's face was filled with disgust as he looked at the countless shadows of dustless holding swords. This was the first time in his life that he felt this way. He hurriedly adjusted the spiritual pressure in his body, trying to break free from the cross on his back. However, the spiritual pressure in his body seemed to have been drained and was half out of balance, completely ignoring him. Such a gloomy world was enough to make people tremble. There were countless people holding large sabers, threatening to cut him into pieces. No one would be able to remain calm in such a situation. After all, he couldn't move now. Messengers of God are very durable. Let me test whether you are qualified or not. With an evil smile, Dustless ordered the shadow clones to pounce on Li Jiebaro. What's going on? The outside world had turned into ruins, and only 4 living beings were left. Dustless, Candace, Bambietta, and of course, Li Jiebaro was covered in cold sweat. At this moment, his face was pale, and he no longer looked as arrogant as before. Instead, he was in great pain. Why did you suddenly become like this when you were fine just now? What kind of evil thing did you do? Candace looked at Dustless with a thirst for knowledge. Li Jiebaro was still domineering a second ago, but who would have thought that he would fall to the ground in the next second and end up like this? His body was covered in cold sweat, and his face was pale as if he had suffered a great deal of pain. It was worse than death. It's very simple. He said he was a messenger of God, and I just let him experience what a messenger of God should do. He should thank me. Dustless shrugged, as if it had nothing to do with him. I will not let you go. After a while, Li Jiebaro opened his blood-red eyes, and his body was trembling in anger. He had been killed by Dustless several times. This blood feud must be settled. You still want to take revenge in this state? The Quincy division led by Yawach is indeed crazy. Then, can you tell me which part of your body is the Spirit King? Left leg or right leg? Dustless asked as he turned a deaf ear to Jurij-Baro's murderous aura. On the surface, Li Jiebaro was glaring at Dustless with hatred. However, his heart was in turmoil. Even though he tried to cover it up, Dustless could still hear his heavy breathing. Where did this bastard get this information? The only person in Wandless Empire who knows about our identity is Jugram. She got the news from there. Li Jiebaro was shocked. He looked at Candace and Bambietta like a wolf and then shook his head slightly. Although they were both members of the Sternritter, the world they lived in was completely different. They were just pawns. It doesn't matter whether I tell you or not. You're going to become a zombie soon, Dustless said suddenly, and a black metal rod appeared in his hand. Living dead? Are you still asleep? His Majesty's personal guards are immortal. The Saint can easily change everything and has the power to revive us from the underworld. Li Jiebaro said with disdain. Get it straight. I'm not like that Songdu from before. That kind of idiot will always be a pawn. Take note, I'm talking about living dead, not really killing you. Dustless shook his finger as a cunning smile appeared on his face. He said sinisterly, I know that after killing you, Yawach or Jugram can revive you. But if I keep your heartbeat and only take away your consciousness, do you know what that means? Hearing this, Li Jiebaro's face changed and turned green. He suddenly understood what Dustless meant. Turning him into a killing tool with no consciousness but still keeping his heartbeat, he wouldn't be dead and couldn't be revived. Li Jiebaro looked up and glared at Dustless. Wandless Empire often said that the Grim Reaper was evil, but he felt that this bastard in front of him was thousands of times more evil than the Grim Reaper. Pucci! While Li Jiebaro was cursing Dustless, he felt a sharp pain in his right leg. He saw the black iron rod piercing into his leg. What scared him the most was that he lost all feeling in his right leg. Li Jiebaro was shocked. Looking at the black iron rod that appeared in Dustless's hand, he wanted to open his left eye and activate the Universal Link ability to ignore physical attacks. But the injuries he suffered before didn't allow him to do so. It was hard to even keep his consciousness. Pucci! 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 Another black iron rod flew out and pierced into Li Jiebero's left leg, arms and heart. Next is your head. Dustless squatted down and looked at the terrified Li Jiebero. He smiled and said sarcastically, "Funny, even the messenger of God can feel fear?" Li Jiebero immediately turned his head and looked into Dustless's eyes. He shouted, "Since the Grim Reaper respects the Spirit King so much, you should bow down to us." "Sorry, I'm not. On the contrary, I want to replace the Spirit King. You guys are really an eyesore. The Spirit King's arms and legs are in your personal guards. There's even a Spirit King's heart. That's why it's best if you guys die." Dustless smiled. What Li Jiebero said was the truth. After all, there were 2 members of Yuhabaka's personal guards who were part of the Spirit King's body. Since the Grim Reaper really respected the Spirit King, he should respect them who were part of the Spirit King's body. Chapter 1108. From Dustless's point of view, Li Jiebero was admitting defeat. You want to replace the Spirit King? Dream on. The one who will replace the Spirit King and become the ruler of the 3 realms is His Majesty. Li Jiebero retorted. Obviously, he was brainwashed by Yawach and couldn't be more loyal. Let me ask you one last question. Where is Yawach's sleeping place? Dustless narrowed his eyes and asked calmly. Humph. Don't say that I don't know. Even if I knew, I wouldn't tell you. Li Jiebero said stubbornly. Although Dustless said it gently, he smelled a strong murderous intent. If Dustless knew that Yawach was sleeping somewhere, Yawach would probably be beheaded immediately. Then goodbye. Dustless was too lazy to ask such a brainwashed loyalist. The deep black iron rod was directly inserted into his mind, and his will and consciousness were instantly taken away. The various tissues in his mind were instantly annihilated, leaving only his beating heart. He had turned into an existence similar to a human in a vegetative state, his eyes empty and lifeless. This is the living dead I was talking about. The living dead. Standing up and moving his stiff limbs, Dustless turned to Candace and Bambietta, who were in a daze, and said, "I'm going to Soul Society now. You 2 can do whatever you want. It's good if Shinozaki Shinya can be found. If not, it doesn't matter." Dustless repeated. "You're going to Soul Society?" Candace looked at Dustless suspiciously, confused. She didn't know what he was planning, but from the gloomy and malicious sneer, it wasn't hard to see that Dustless was up to no good. At the same time, Li Jiebero stood up and moved slowly to the surprise of the 2 girls. "Don't tell me. You want to control Li Jiebero to attack Soul Society?" Candace and Bambietta were stunned as they suddenly understood Dustless's intention. Think about it, the Quincy Legion that should have been wiped out thousands of years ago suddenly reappeared in the world and boldly attacked Soul Society. It was self-evident how big the aftermath would be. This would directly cause the Grim Reaper to start a war with Quincy again. Hehe. When did the 2 of you become so smart? I do plan to use the hands of the Grim Reaper to get rid of Quincy. It's best if both of them suffer. Dustless sneered. All he needed to do was to expose all traces of Quincy, especially the identity of Rich Barrow. It was Yawach's personal guard, and the captain of the personal guard. At that time, Shinigami and Quincy would fight again. It would be difficult for Wandenrake to stay out of it. Whether it was Sosuke Aizen, Jugram, or even Shinigami, they would all be involved in this sudden war. There were no clouds in Soul Society. It was clear and sunny. Rich Barrow, who was controlled by Dustless, had secretly infiltrated Soul Society and even came to Yamamoto's favorite place, the Shin Spiritual Academy. Chapter 1109. Captain Yamamoto's body erupted with blazing flames that almost engulfed the entire sky. The sky that he swept across was dyed red, and his long beard stood up in anger. This old man is probably going to vomit blood. Looking at the corpses all over the place, Dustless secretly laughed. This method was equivalent to cutting off a piece of flesh from old man Yamamoto's heart. It was enough for him to feel the pain for a long time. Stop it for this old man. The thunderous roar reverberated in the ears of everyone. Looking up, old man Yamamoto was standing in the void with a murderous aura. The pillar of fire that erupted from his body shot straight to the sky. The entire sky of Soul Society turned red, as if it was the dusk of doomsday. The penetrating temperature was enough to make people tremble in fear. "You think I'll help you just because you say so?" Dustless, who was secretly controlling Yamamoto, said with disdain. Dustless only had one impression of old man Yamamoto: rotten. Although he gave off the feeling of being a neighbor's grandfather, it was actually not the case. 1,000 years ago, he was the one who created the Goatee Eye 13. At that time, Soul Society was still an assassin group, and Captain Yamamoto was the leader of that group of cold-blooded assassins. It was enough to tell what kind of person he was. Just like what Yawatch said when he invaded Soul Society, 1,000 years of peace had worn down Captain Yamamoto's spirit. "Who are you?" Captain Yamamoto stared at Rita Barrow, who was wreaking havoc, and asked sternly. Ryujin Jaka was already unsheathed, and the blade was wrapped in blazing flames. Rita Barrow, who was controlled by Dustless, didn't reply. Instead, he used his actions to explain everything. Outer shell blood stasis armor. With Rita Barrow as the center, the circular energy shield quickly spread out again and almost instantly closed in on Captain Yamamoto. "This is annihilation." Captain Yamamoto couldn't help but be stunned. Immediately, he waved Ryujin Jaka, and blazing flames shot out. The rune field that was rushing towards him instantly collapsed. Dustless saw this and laughed secretly. He imitated Rita Barrow's tone and used his body to speak. "Don't you understand? Of course, I'm annihilation, you bunch of death god idiots." Head Captain Yamamoto's expression changed. To him, the words annihilation sure were taboo. Moreover, the blood-calming armor that he used before was indeed a Quincy skill, and his identity was not fake. "Are you wondering why we haven't been destroyed? Of course, how could the wise and mighty His Majesty be defeated by you mere Grim Reapers? Don't talk about such ridiculous things in the future." Dustless controlled Li Jie Barrow to reveal his identity and said proudly, "I am the captain of His Majesty Yawatch's personal guard, Li Jie Barrow. My code name is X, and my ability is Universal Connection." Do you death gods really think that the Wandless Empire is extinct? Big mistake. Dustless continued to control Li Jie Barrow's body as he mocked. "Don't think too highly of yourself. Not only have we not gone extinct, but we have also grown stronger over the past 1,000 years. It won't be long before we flatten your Soul Society." Boom, boom, boom. Blazing spiritual pressure erupted and swept across Soul Society like a hot knife through butter. The Grim Reapers who came from all directions hurriedly avoided the attack of this violent spiritual pressure. Some of the captains knew that the head captain was about to go crazy. If that's the case, it won't be long before the head captain sends someone to investigate the Wandless Empire, Dustless muttered to himself as he looked at Yamamoto in the void. At the same time, in another direction. Who can explain to me what's going on? Who allowed him to do this? Jugram's cold voice sounded from within the Wandless Empire. Crack, crack, crack. Cracks began to appear on the surrounding buildings, and the atmosphere was oppressive. "We sent Li Jie to eliminate the 2 traitors in the real world, so why did he suddenly turn around and attack Soul Society? He even revealed the secret that we've been hiding for 1,000 years. Was his brain damaged by Yamamoto's Ryujin Jikoka?" Gerald Valkyrie, who was also one of Yawatch's personal guards, said angrily. He also had a special identity. The Heart of the Soul King. "Jugram, what should we do?" The other 3 personal guards looked at Jugram. He was Yawatch's personal guard and the next king of the Wandless Empire. Jugram was also in a dilemma. His thoughts had reached a dead end. Li Jie Barrow had already exposed their tracks, so the chances of them continuing to hide were 0. We might as well kill the Grim Reaper. Even without His Majesty, we still have enough strength to cripple the Grim Reaper. I suggest we start a war with them immediately. Gerald Valkyrie said, his frivolous tone disdainful of the Grim Reaper. Yawatch's personal guards called themselves messengers of the gods, and they looked down on everyone. In the sky above the Esoteric Academy, the shock waves from the battle between the 2 figures covered the entire quiet Soul Society. Since it was Dustless's first time controlling Quincy, he was very inexperienced in using it. As a result, Li Jie Barrow was constantly suppressed. His body was burned full of holes, and scars could be seen everywhere. No matter what, the framing this time was a success. Dustless was relieved. He was sure that Wandless Empire would not be able to hide in the dark from now on. In the face of such heavy losses, after Yamamoto dealt with Ligia Barrow, he would definitely use the power of the Grim Reaper to search for traces of Quincy all over the world. Some things could be laughed off by the head captain, but some things had to be investigated to the end. Chapter 11:10. Just like the current situation, not to mention the fact that a large number of students of Xeno Academy died. Even if this accident didn't happen, the head captain would still investigate the matter of Quincy. Especially since Barrow admitted that he was Yawacha's subordinate, and his origin wasn't simple. He was the captain of Yawacha's personal guard. This is going to be a good show, you guys can slowly fight. Dustless, who was hiding in the darkness, looked up at the sky, and he could clearly see the figures of the captains, Jushiro Yukitake, Shunsui Kayokura, Higashi Shiroshi. Anyway, the captains were all here. However, Dustless's line of sight was always fixed on Sosuke Aizen, and his eyes flashed with a cunning smile. Old man, it's time to retreat, I'll play with you next time. Barrow's casual provocation made head captain Yamamoto's forehead bulge with blue veins. Instead of saying that Barrow was deliberately provoking him, it was better to say that Dustless was deliberately angering head captain Yamamoto. After all, he was now controlling Barrow with the ability of Rinnegan. Arrogant brat! Head captain Yamamoto roared, and the Ryujin Jaka in his hand rolled, and a blazing explosion followed. Scorching hell! The earth trembled, and dozens of thick pillars of fire rose from the ground, covering almost the entire Soul Society, and the sky was red. That inexplicable bastard. Does he want to live too long? He dares to deliberately anger old man Yamamoto. Even if he wants to die, don't drag us down with him. Shunsui Kayokura cursed. Even if the blazing flames weren't deliberately aimed at him, his whole body was like water that was about to evaporate. Idiot! Glancing at Shunsui Kayokura, Dustless directly defined him as an idiot. Although this man was actually very careful and strong, Dustless always felt that this guy's brain was somewhat damaged. All the captains are here, the game ends here. Seeing that all the captains were in place, Dustless used the power of Rinnegan to control Barrow to retreat. He was deliberately attracting the attention of these captains. There was no need to fight. In front of this old man, you still want to run? In the next 1,000 years, no one will be able to escape from me. Not Yawach, not you. Head Captain Yamamoto sneered when he saw Raiji Barrow turning around and retreating. He gave up on chasing after him and simply stood in the air. He believed that Raiji Barrow would turn around and run back. You want to escape from Yuan Lu Zai Sensei's flowing fire Jaka? This is unrealistic and impossible. Yukitake Jushiro shook his head and did not look at Raiji Barrow. The strongest Shinigami in the past 1,000 years was not just for show. Humph. A bunch of self-righteous idiots. Under the capture of Rinnegan, Dustless clearly saw the changes in the expressions of the captains in the sky, and immediately said sarcastically, "Thousands of years of peace, no strong enemy has appeared, causing you people to boast about the strength of the captain to the sky." With a strange smile on the corner of his mouth, Dustless controlled Raiji Barrow to fly to the giant fire pillar, and then suddenly shouted, "All things connect." Under everyone's stunned gaze, Raiji Barrow's whole body floated over the thick fire pillar. He ignored my attack? How is that possible? Yamamoto's calm face fell. It was so gloomy that water could drip from it. This kind of violation was completely a cheating skill. Head Captain Yamamoto suddenly thought of a similar figure. Very young, with a spring breeze smile on the corner of his mouth, very thin, looked like a 17 or 18 years old boy, but his strength was incredible. He alone annihilated all the Shinigami except for himself and the Zero Squad. It was Dustless. Similarly, Dustless was also a cheating maniac, and he was immune to physical attacks. Why are you still standing there? Chase him. Seeing the captains were still in a daze, Head Captain Yamamoto ordered loudly, "Annihilate that guy at all costs if you can catch him alive, if not." Humph. I don't need to say it. You all understand. The captains looked at each other and chased after Raiji Barrow. The head captain's anger was enough to make people tremble in fear. Even if they were captains, facing the strongest Shinigami, they didn't have the slightest intention to resist. They immediately chased after Raiji Barrow. Mayuri immediately sealed the connection between Soul Society and the outside world. Silver, I keep feeling that something isn't right. I'll use the Mirror's Moon ability to confuse these captains. You find a chance to go to the underground laboratory in Central Room 46 to observe the situation. I've placed the Hungyu there, so we can't lose it. There's something wrong with this Quincy. Jugram is extremely sinister, so be careful. Ikamaru Jin nodded. Aizen's worry wasn't without reason. Jugram's eyes seemed to be able to detect everything. Ikamaru Jin felt a little weak when he looked at Jugram. TSK. Aizen is really smart. Dustless praised. Raiji Barrow was behind him. At this moment, in the dark Central Room 46, there was a dead silence, eerie and terrifying. The rotten bones on the ground were clearly visible. There were even a lot of spider webs on them. Central Room 46 was destroyed by Aizen a long time ago, but in the eyes of those who saw Aizen's Kyoka Suigetsu, it was no different from before. Boom boom boom. Activating his boundless eye power, he controlled Ligia Barrow to blast a huge hole in the ground, and all kinds of instruments and equipment immediately came into view. With a slight thought, Ligia Barrow and Dustless both jumped down. Oh, you really came here. It seems like Captain Aizen is right. Jugram has to be on guard. A man with silver hair came out of the darkness and blocked Raiji Barrow. There is another person. How is it possible? You didn't die. Your cells were melted by my Bankai. Ikamaru Jin suddenly realized that there was another person with Raiji Barrow. He turned his head and was shocked. Captain Ikamaru Jin, since you saw me, please go to hell. I will take care of Luanju in the future. With a sneer, Dustless didn't hesitate to sentence Ikamaru Jin to death. Chapter 11:11. The smile on Ikamaru Jin's face vanished. Hearing the bone-piercing murderous aura from Wu Chen's mouth, he couldn't help but have goosebumps. This is definitely a ruthless person who keeps his word. It's strange, isn't it? Ignoring Ikamaru Jin's cold expression, Dustless continued. A person who was supposed to be dead suddenly came back to life. No one can accept it in such a short time, but this is the truth. No one in this world can destroy me. No matter what kind of creature he is, there is no exception. His eyes emitted a domineering light. Wu Chen's entire body was shining like the stars in the sky. His eyes were sparkling. You, humph. Hearing these incomparably savage words, Ikamaru Jin was about to ridicule Dustless a few words, but when he thought of his strength that swept away everything, he fell silent again. Among the people he knew, no one was Dustless's opponent. Yamamoto was no match for him. And neither was Sosuke Aizen. Just the scene of Dustless coming back from the dead gave Jin a big fright. Leave Luanju to me. I will help you fulfill your only wish. Dustless's murderous aura disappeared, and his voice became much softer. You have been hiding by Sosuke Aizen's side for so many years, and you want to avenge Luanju. To be honest, your loyalty is touching, but you're not strong enough to do it. That's why. You should give up on the ridiculous idea of taking revenge on Sosuke Aizen. Ikamaru Jin locked onto Dustless like a poisonous snake, and his aura surged. Heido number 88. Flying Dragon Strikes Thief. The thick beam of light came head-on, and the dark basement was incomparably bright. Wu Chen's whole body was covered by the light. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. At this critical moment, Raiji Barrow stood in front of Dustless, and his Ryatsu was much denser than Ikamaru Jin's. He was the captain of Yawacha's personal guard, and he was not weaker than Ikamaru Jin. Great Sage Bow. A bow the size of a normal human was formed in an instant. The dazzling spiritual arrows on the bowstring made people not dare to look at them directly. Swish! Swish! A torrential rain of arrows shot out, scattering the flashes of light in an instant. It looked very simple. Not only that, the remaining arrows were aimed at Jin Ikamaru. Seeing this, Jin couldn't help but be surprised. This was the first time he reacted to a spiritual pressure eruption. Binding Dao 81. Sky shattering. Ikamaru Jin heaved a sigh of relief as the transparent wall blocked his attack. Ka. He had naively thought that the 88th Dao Breaker would be able to weaken the arrows without limit. Who would have thought that the 81st Dao Breaker would be so powerful that it would instantly collapse? Puchi! 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 Jin Ikamaru's arms and legs were swallowed by the spirit seed arrows. His face was pale and he looked like he was in great pain. If this guy used the great sage bow himself, it might have been blocked, but I'm sorry, I'm the one controlling him from behind the scenes. Pointing at Rijibaro, Dustless said in a relaxed tone. No wonder, I thought that Quincy was a meticulous person. How could he attack Soul Society rashly? It turned out that you were the one controlling him. It seems that he was able to fight against the captain because you were controlling him from behind the scenes. Jin Ikamaru said while gasping for breath. In order to provoke the battle between Shinigami and Quincy, you really planned everything. You forced me to do this. I was tricked by Aizen and Jugram. If I didn't fight back, they would have taken a mile after taking an inch. When he mentioned Jugram and Aizen Sosuke, Dustless's killing intent exploded. Shoot him, Shinigami. While Dustless was distracted, Jin Ikamaru released his Zanpakuto without hesitation, and a huge white light rushed toward him. The speed was extremely fast, almost in the blink of an eye. Dustless had no time to react. Boom boom boom. Dustless took the fatal attack head-on, but he was unharmed, and the place where he was stabbed only flashed faintly, and quickly recovered. I suddenly realized that it's a pity to kill you like this. Since you want to avenge Matsumoto so much, then I will reluctantly fulfill your long-cherished wish. Dustless sneered, and the Rinnegan in his left eye focused on Jin Ikamaru, and a majestic spiritual power invaded Jin's mind. With a heaven-defying method, he modified his memory. It's not too late to let Jin assassinate Aizen after he squeezed the last bit of value out of him. This is also his long-cherished wish to avenge Matsumoto Ranjaku. It's time to leave. Sensing the majestic spiritual power that was crazily attacking him, the spiritual power was much stronger than the other captains. If he guessed correctly, it should be Aizen. Kamui! Dustless glanced at Rajit Barrow, and decisively devoured him. This guy is a bit tricky to deal with, and he can't be killed. Once he is killed, there is a high possibility that Yawatch will use Saint to revive him in the future. You are also one of us now. After taking a deep look at Jin Ikamaru, Dustless disappeared in the dark space. He had already implanted what he was going to say in Ikamaru Jin's mind. With a little provocation, he could ignite the conflict between Aizen and Yawatch. At that time, Shinigami and Quincy, as well as Aizen, would fight again. Dustless can fish in troubled waters secretly. I can't leave so easily. In a corner of Soul Society, Dustless's cold voice sounded, as if he remembered something, and resolutely chose to stay in Soul Society. Because the so-called Wandenrake is actually hidden in the shadow of Soul Society. To put it simply, Wandenrake is actually in Soul Society. Chapter 11-12. Sosuke Aizen flew over like a rocket, leaving a deep mark in the sky that could not be erased. When he sensed the intense collision of Ryatsu, he instinctively realized that he had been tricked. Silver, tell me what's going on. Aizen's tone was 70% angry and 30% commanding. He was like a barrel of gunpowder that was about to explode. The top-secret laboratory was destroyed. The data collected over the years would be damaged. All the specimens were also destroyed, including some of Aizen's most important experiments. It was a heavy loss. Quincy did it. Ikamaru Jin licked his dry lips and said after he recovered. Him. Thinking of Barrow's back, Aizen murderously asked, "What's that guy doing? He must have a goal. It seems like he's looking for Hogyoku." Ikamaru Jin paused as his memory was changed by Dustless. These words were naturally made up to trick Sosuke Aizen. It's just my personal guess. Maybe he attacked us for something else. After all, Hogyoku isn't good for Quincy. Hogyoku contains the power of Hollow and Shinigami. Hollow's power is fatal to Quincy. Ikamaru Jin said. He was obviously taking a step back. Humph. It's normal for Jugram to be scheming. Aizen believed Ikamaru Jin's words. His hoarse voice was filled with hatred for Quincy. He sneered, "Since Quincy dared to steal my Hogyoku, then don't blame me for being ruthless." Ikamaru Jin was surprised and asked, "Captain Aizen, you mean to expose Jugram's Wandenrake?" "Of course." Aizen Sosuke laughed sinisterly, his tone laced with hatred. "Not only will I reveal the whereabouts of Wandenrake and Jugram, I will also personally lead the head captain to exterminate those evildoers who have harmed the world." Since Quincy was willing to betray him, then even if they wanted to cut ties with him, Aizen could also abandon them. Inevitably, Aizen's words were transmitted to Dustless's mind through Ikamaru Jin's ears. Phew, it took me so much effort. It seems that Aizen is finally going to bare his fangs against Wandenrake. His perturbed heart calmed down, and Wu Chen's mouth hung a light smile like a spring breeze. Plotting against Aizen, Wandenrake, and occasionally flirting with Candace and Bambietta had become his life. Although it was boring, it was very comfortable. Without Yawacha's help, Wandenrake's destruction is only a matter of time. Wu Chen said indifferently like a breeze. His simple tone was like an insect, very casual and insignificant. Jugram was much more benevolent than Yawach, and it was still a mystery whether his strength could surpass Yamamoto's. After taking a deep look at Quiet Soul Society behind him, Dustless disappeared. Time passed quickly, and 3 days passed in the blink of an eye. During this time, Aizen secretly reported Quincy's whereabouts to Yamamoto, saying that they found him accidentally. This news shocked Yamamoto. Chapter 11-13. On one side was the Masquerade Corps led by Tera Masako, and on the other side was Urahara Kisuke and 4 Maple Court's Yi. "Get out of my way!" Ape Persimmon growled in a low voice. His eyes flickered with cold light, and his killing intent surged like a wave. Soul Society killed our companions, and they must pay with their blood. Of course, that Aizen Sosuke is no exception. Ri Shiori said without giving up. The other members of the Masquerade Corps were silent. Urahara Kisuke knew that silence meant agreement. "I'm sorry, but I can't tolerate your actions. Now that Soul Society is going through an unprecedented disaster, I absolutely can't allow you to act recklessly." Urahara Kisuke's tone was calm and firm, expressing his stance. The members of the Masquerade Corps frowned. If possible, they didn't want to be enemies with Urahara Kisuke. After all, he saved the entire Masquerade Corps. Otherwise, all of them would have been killed long ago. Hee. Why do I always encounter such things? In the dark, Dustless gently observed the movements of the Masquerade Corps and couldn't help but sneer. If the Masquerade Corps also joined in, that would be great. These people were one less person to kill. Urahara Kisuke, this eyesore jumped out again. "Since you want to get involved so much, I will help you." His pupils twisted sharply, and Rita Barrow once again appeared in his eyes. The cold muzzle was aimed at Urahara Kisuke. "Go for me!" With Dustless's roar, Rita Barrow's muzzle suddenly condensed a huge bullet. Soon after, it erupted with an aura that could destroy everything in its path. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. The powerful attack stunned everyone, and they all looked in the direction where the bullet came from. Locking on to the enemy's trace, Dustless and Rita Barrow disappeared from the face of the earth. "Everyone get out of the way!" Urahara Kisuke's pupils shrank, and he quickly shouted. Although he didn't know what this huge light was, it would definitely be destroyed if it hit them. Urahara Kisuke reminded everyone to retreat, and they took this opportunity to pass through Urahara Kisuke's obstruction and rush toward the center of Soul Society. It was the center of the battle between Quincy and Shinigami. "Damn it! Come back! Don't go over there. Those annihilators are dangerous. Not only will they harm you, but they will also harm Soul Society." Urahara Kisuke cursed. His tone was full of anxiety, and at the same time, a huge amount of Ryatsu surged from his body. Hee. You're an outsider who likes to meddle in other people's business. Others going to their deaths has nothing to do with you. Dustless, who was hiding in the dark, muttered to himself. At the same time, Rinnegan turned again, focusing on Urahara Kisuke's left shoulder. Under the control of Rinnegan Sharingan, Rise Barrow once again lifted the spear in his hand, this time aiming at Urahara Kisuke. Regarding this meddlesome person, Dustless was very disgusted and disgusted. Rijibaro raised his gun again. Not only that, he even used his ability, Universal Connection. "There's no stage for you here. Take a break." With the cold muzzle aimed at Urahara Kisuke, Dustless didn't hesitate to order Rise Barrow to continue extracting a large number of Ryatsu. The Ryatsu in the atmosphere was rapidly extracted, quickly attracting the attention of Urahara Kisuke and 4 Fige Court Yoruichi. You withdraw first, I'll deal with this. Four-Fige Court Yoruchi decisively stood in front of Urahara Kasuke and said seriously. Yi-san, you have to pay attention. From the scale of Ryatsu extraction, the opponent should be a powerful Quincy. Urahara Kasuke lowered the brim of his hat and said cautiously. When he was about to chase after the masked core, Dustless directly ordered the beam of light to erupt. Bang bang bang. Ka-ka-ka. The absolute heavy blow obviously hit the person. There was a painful howl, and the sound of bones couldn't withstand the powerful force. How is this possible? The bullet bypassed me and hit Kasuke? Seeing such an unexpected scene, Four-Fige Court Yoruchi was stunned for a moment, and his eyes were dim. Looking at Urahara Kasuke who was suffering behind him, he felt that his brain wasn't enough. Idiot, this is the essence of connection of all things. No matter if there is something in front of you or not, anything that is targeted by Rise will be hit. Dustless sneered and looked at Rise Barrow with more and more satisfaction. No wonder Quincy calls Yawatch God every day. And this guy calls himself God's messenger. This kind of ability is indeed heaven-defying. After taking a deep look at Urahara Kasuke, Dustless quietly left, opened the tunnel to Hueco Mundo, and disappeared from the war-torn Soul Society. This was only the first step of Dustless's plan, and it was far from enough to completely kill Quincy. After all, the Sternritter Knights had 26 members, and their combined strength was almost at the captain level. It seems that this is the end. Urahara Kasuke endured the stabbing pain all over his body and looked at the disappearing figures of the masked core. His tone was particularly bleak. They are our trump card against Sosuke Aizen. If we don't save them, we may be wiped out. Four-Fige Court Yoruchi supported Urahara Kasuke. Hee. I also want to stop them, but I don't have the ability now. I hope God has mercy on them. Urahara Kasuke said weakly. His body was about to fall. The bastard who provoked the war between Shinigami and Quincy is definitely not a good person. No matter who wins or loses this time, one side will be swept into the garbage heap of history. Which bastard is cursing me behind my back? If I catch him, I will definitely destroy him. On the way to Hueco Mundo, Dustless sneezed all the way. You're tuning in to the Xiaofan's Wuxia Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.